Like anything in particular? Like, so there's a risk. Also continues to have like a sensor. Continues to monitor how they're acting.
Hello?
There seems to be a good number of yeah. Just kind of also like yeah, there's just yeah, it's a little bit really in a micro facility. I wish it had but I think it's not. Well, I was thinking that's not China. It's not. Yeah. So it's so I mean, that's part of it. Because national. I mean, I was being academic. Okay. I mean, other than that, I mean, I have to find research on that. So, okay. So, yeah.
I don't actually need it yet, but I will. So this is muted right now. These are on, actually. If I turned it on, it would start working.
Should.
Number one, number three. All right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you guys hear me now? This is a test for our online audience.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey. Oh, the odds are very high. You can steal multiple donuts.
Well, you'll appreciate how
You actually, you know what? Come here. That's okay. Yeah. So I think we're going to start in a couple minutes if you want to grab donuts before we get going. All right, everyone. Okay, let's see. All right, so welcome to our recruiting weekend. I guess week, and it's a Thursday, but it's a few days. So today we're going to do a lot of different things this morning. I think you've already seen the schedule. We're going to kind of kick off with kind of a very brief, high-level overview of the department, and a kind of a small faculty panel where you can ask questions of our current faculty. Then we'll all get out and we'll let some grad students take over for a bit, and you can find out the truth. And hopefully then, yeah, we'll kind of get into the rest of the day in a minute. But to kick things off, I think, why don't we have our illustrious graduate chair, Matthew, talk a little bit.
Good morning, everyone. I usually talk too much, so I promised Mark I would not do that today, but I just wanted to say welcome to Georgia Tech. I think we're really happy to see people in person. We have also some students online, I believe. So we learned a lot during the pandemic, but seeing people in person makes a huge difference, and we're glad you're here. Make sure you interact with people, meet professors as much as you can, and you'll see everything we have to offer in the real world. So I think that's my main message for today. Thanks for coming. I'm a pure product of Georgia Tech. Okay, I came here kind of right where you are right now and kind of never really left, I guess, in a way. Georgia Tech is an awesome place. I mean, I've seen it grow, and this building is amazing. And I really hope that you get to realize that today. I think we're, we might be what we are on paper, but we're also a really awesome community with great people, students, peers, faculty. I want to also recognize our staff. They're doing a lot of work behind the scene for you guys today. You might not see that, but I think we have a fantastic campus, and I really hope, if you're not sure, that we're the right place for you, I'm really hoping that we'll really convince you that, you should stick around, because this is really an awesome place. So I'll leave it at that. There's a really nice event tonight. I'm hoping to see all of you there. I'll be there. And so enjoy your day. If you have questions, Mark, and I are here. Mark has done a fantastic job. Thank you, Mark. And enjoy. Don't forget to grab donuts and coffee. Otherwise, I'll take them.
Take care. Yes. Okay. So I will try not to be particularly long either. All right, so let me also just very quickly in one slide, I'm going to tell you what I think is unique about Georgia Tech. I think it actually is very clear. So there's two things that make Georgia Tech different than any other place that I've been, actually. So one is size. As you will see, we are big, but also we are very good. So I think this combination is somewhat unique. There are lots of great places that are very small. There are a lot of big places, but I think this combination is pretty unique. So we are, when I say we're big, I think you will get this impression just from the interaction that you have while you're here. We are the largest producer of ECE PhD students in the US. And we do that with like about 100 faculty. I can never actually, I'm saying this is approximate because I actually don't know. The number of faculty that are hiring every year is a lot. So there's like new people coming in and people retiring all the time. I'm not sure how many faculty we have, but it's about 100. We have over 1,000 grad students if you count PhD students and master's students. And with a lot of faculty and a lot of students, that also means we have lots of different courses, lots of specialized courses in very specific topics that is a cool benefit, not something that I had when I was doing my PhD. And also, we're very good. So we do a lot of research. We have lots of really good people. It is, this kind of the combination I think is really cool because you can truly benefit from the fact that there are experts in like every single sub area of ECE and then also outside of ECE. And so, when you're thinking about when you get into research and you run into some problem, like, oh, I wish I could ask someone about, X. Turns out that one of the world's experts on X is just down the hall. So that's my sales pitch. Let me give you a very brief summary of, basically what the PhD program structure looks like. Unfortunately, Daniela's not here yet, but I'll be honest, the PhD students are actually a better resource for understanding this than me, because I don't actually have to do it. So the current PhD students will know these rules much better than me. So what do you have to do to get a PhD? Right now, you have to do 43 hours of coursework. That turns out to be about 13 classes. This might change, but this is the current rule. It might go down, but that's something we can talk about later. And what this means, by the way, is that it's, a master's degree is basically 30 hours of coursework, or 10 classes. And so this is basically 3 extra classes past a master's. And you can have, like, if you already have a master's, you can transfer courses in, and we can try to get into that, but I'm actually not the expert on the rules. Matthew knows more. But then what else do we have? Do we have a comprehensive examination? We actually don't have a comprehensive examination. So there's no prelim or comprehensive test. We used to have one, then the faculty agreed that it was a terrible idea and that most of us wouldn't pass it. And so we got rid of it because it was not really useful. So, so basically there is a sort of a replacement of that is that you have to basically pick a small subset of 4 kind of courses from this list and get at least a 3.5 in those. This is not, I think, a big hurdle for most people. The main thing, what do you actually have to do to get a PhD? You have to do research. And so we'll talk more about the mechanism of how, like, what does that actually look like? But typically what happens is after a couple of years, people have enough of an idea of what their PhD is going to look like that they can give kind of they can assemble a committee of relevant experts in that area and give a rough overview of this is kind of what I want to do for my PhD. And so you have to do that. And then once they give you some feedback, you have to actually go write a thesis and do a defense. So that's the main component of what goes on in your time as a PhD student. So typically people spend a lot of time taking classes in the first year or two, and it really tapers off. And people mostly spend their time thinking about their dissertation, writing papers, and so on. So right here, this is an average time to graduate from your bachelor's in our program is about 5 years. It varies a lot, right? So can you get out in 3 or 4 years if you are determined? Like if you are on a fellowship from the military that says you must graduate in X number of years, you're going to do it. Like those people are willing to do it, and they do it. If you are, if you're like me, you might end up being more relaxed about it and spend a lot of time going to bar trivia and graduating in 6 years. So it's sort of up to you to some extent. And the last thing I'll point out, if you are in the BioE program, robotics or machine learning program, a lot of what I'm saying is basically true, but there are specific details. So the actual structure of the program, basically what courses you have to take and how this prelim might work is different in those programs. So you should talk to people who are a part of those programs. I know some of those rules, but not all of them. So, okay. So let me just say, what does Georgia Tech have to offer beyond ECE? Well, I mean, it's lots of experts in lots of other areas. Lots of our students end up finding advisors in computer science or in BME and all kind of really all over the place. What else? So, well, I think this is something you should ask the grad students about, but we, of course, there are various benefits and services provided to all Georgia Tech students, like health insurance and the health services, counseling center, and so on. The rec center, which hopefully on the campus tour, you'll get a chance to see. So this is, I guess, the picture that came up when I did a Google Images search for it. It was also the location of the 1996 swimming events for the Olympics. So it's a nice pool, actually, although I don't ever use it. Okay, the other thing I would just say, the closing part of my sales pitch is that Atlanta is a great place to live. I've had great experiences here. It is a very dynamic place to be. The building you're in, and I actually stayed in the same hotel as you last night. And I was looking out the hotel room and I realized that none of the buildings that I could see existed when I actually came here to Georgia Tech 10 years ago. So most of what you see in the skyline around here is brand new, and it's probably going to look totally different by the time you finish if you come here. And it's it's just a very dynamic, growing and diverse city. I think that I last time I looked this up, there are about 250,000 college students in Atlanta, which is a lot of people just in college students. And so also it's there's lots of museums and music and different kinds of cultural attractions if you're interested. It is a major economic hub. There's lots of activities, lots of job opportunities if you want to stay here later. And mild winters, you are experiencing one right now. I will also point out, this is one of my favorite pictures. So this little girl here is my daughter, and this was a picture taken on her last snow day. So you can actually see me back here. And it was a snow day, and by the afternoon, I was not wearing a coat because it wasn't even that cold outside. So we get it's cold enough, it can get cold enough to snow. It definitely gets cold enough that they will cancel school because they're worried about snow. That happens slightly more often than the actual snow, but overall, it's a nice place to live. So the last thing I want to say, and then I'll kind of turn this over to our panel, is that there's a slight schedule change for this afternoon or this evening. I already emailed you about it, but I just want to remind you that I had originally told you and on your schedule to be on the bus at 5:30. I should have said 5:20. So realistically, they're probably not going to leave till 5:25, but just try to be there early. Another thing I will just point out. So where are we going? We are right. We're right over here. So this is where Tech Square, the hotel, and Coda are. We're going to New Realm Brewing Company. That's where we're going to be having dinner at about 5:45. Some of you have very different schedules. So I know some people have a lot planned for this afternoon. Some people have a lot of flexibility. If you're wondering, if you don't have anything on your schedule for a large segment of this afternoon, you should get out and do something and explore. And given the weather, if it were me, I would definitely kind of just go up and walk around and enjoy Piedmont Park, which is sort of right up here. And I will just point out it's I don't know, it's maybe a 10, 15-minute walk from Piedmont Park down the Beltline to New Realm Brewing Company. So if you are interested in exploring, you could definitely just walk or get on one of these scooters and explore Piedmont Park and the Beltline. I would not ride a scooter. If you wanted to walk or ride a scooter, definitely going up on Piedmont Park and the Beltline is a better option than riding your scooter down Ponce, the most direct route to get there. It's a busy road. I bike and run in a lot, and I would not bike along that particular road. So, okay. So I want to, I guess maybe I'll first ask, are there any big questions yet? Any big questions? I know. Okay, so there'll be a bunch, I'm sure, in a minute, but I think why don't we go ahead and assemble our faculty panel. So what I was thinking is, you guys want to grab a couple of those coffee, bring those over. Yeah, just kind of in a line here in front of the center is fine. So we're going to have one more person joining us, but a few minutes late. Oh wait, one right there. So I'm just giving you microphones only because I know I'm sure everyone can hear you, but the online people will not probably otherwise. So
How many are online?
you're the one who uses Zoom. So there are 30 people there right now, but we're also recording it, so watching later, as I'm sure we're all familiar with in our classes. Okay, so why don't we start? So I guess maybe we should start with just all of you introducing yourselves and saying a little bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. Oops. I'm Azadeh Ansari, and I'm an assistant professor in ECE. I work on radio frequency MEMS devices and micro robotics.
I'm Sam Coogan. I'm an assistant professor in ECE as well. I have a joint appointment in civil engineering as well. So I'm in the systems and controls area, and I'm also part of the robotics institute. So some of you are part of the Robo PhD program as well. And so I know a bit about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morris Cohen. I'm an associate professor here. My research area is in low frequency radio waves for some geoscience and some engineering applications around communications. And so it kind of combines electromagnetics with some signal processing and some antenna theory and even some machine learning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Rosell. I'm a professor in electrical and computer engineering and courtesy appointments in biomedical engineering and interactive computing. So my research is kind of at the intersection of machine learning, artificial intelligence with neuroscience and neurotechnology. We build closed loop systems that interact with the brain, try and help us understand how it works, what goes wrong when it goes wrong, how to mess around with it to make it go right when it goes wrong, and then how to build better machines from what we're learning.
Great. So, so I thought maybe, unless someone else wants to ask a question, I thought it would be good to maybe just start off with, placing yourself back in the seats where they are, and think about, you all had to go get a PhD at some point, and you had to decide where and what you were going to study. How did you actually make that decision? And then maybe, knowing what you know now, would you do you have kind of better advice on maybe a better way to make that decision than what you did? You guys, anyone can say.
Well, I'll say, my case is maybe a little unusual. I ended up going to a very small program because I knew something very, very specific that I wanted to do. And I think that that's unusual. And I think having a place with a lot of activity to help you find what's most exciting, it has a lot of value. For me, I was all set to go somewhere else. Like I had my decision made. It was good professionally. It was going to be good for me personally. The woman who was going to become my wife and I were dating long distance, and we could both be in the same city. And I ended up changing my mind entirely based on my graduate visit. I had a very awkward phone call from a hotel room in the city I was visiting to my future wife to say, I think we need to talk about this, because I was overwhelmed with the excitement of that environment and what was happening. Like I got there and it wasn't just like, oh, that's nice research. It was, oh, like we're changing the world with this. And then the next person I met is, oh, we're changing the world with this. And the next person I met is, oh, we're changing the world with this. And they weren't saying that. It wasn't full of hubris, but there was just like this excitement about what they were doing and the impact that they were having. It was an energy that was unmistakable, and it was very different from the other places I had visited. So connecting with people on my visit completely changed my mind about where I was going to go. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
I mean, so I think another key thing to look for is a breadth of advisors, or at least an advisor that you connect with, right? So it's either kind of the number of possible connections you can have, and in a place like Georgia Tech, it's, one great thing we have is we have somebody, usually multiple people working in everything, right? So you can usually identify at least a handful of faculty you could plausibly see as your advisor. And I think that's important, because if you don't see an advisor, or preferably at least a few possible advisors, you can end up being at a great school, but not with an opportunity to do the kind of research and work you want to do.
I can add something. So I wanted to do experimental work. I knew that I have to look for a place that has research facilities and infrastructure. So at the time I was an international student. I didn't have the luxury to visit different schools, but at least, I looked to see, for example, do they have clean room facilities? Do they have multiple advisors? That's a really key point, because then you have options to choose who you want to work with. And, look for the infrastructure. I would say Georgia Tech is great in this. If you're in the bio area, Emory is around. If you're doing nanotechnology research, we have the clean room, material facilities, and then, many different schools and the close collaboration that can really help.
Yeah. All right. I'll just say that, a lot of attention is often given to, you know, the impact of the field you're going into. And I think there's a lot of different areas where you could have impact in different ways. But don't forget to also think about what you'll be doing day to day, what your actual skills and, what your tasks will be and whether you're going to love that. Because you have to love what you're doing along the way. And that's actually, I think, the way that you will grow your impact is by kind of loving what you're doing and you put your heart into it. So think about what you'll be doing every day as part of your experience in your research work.
Sorry, I just have one more thing to add. Everyone's spot on about finding like your intellectual home, but I think also trying to evaluate, like, can you be happy at a place is good too. You've all heard, I'm sure, like a horror story from some colleague that went to grad school and had a really bad experience with it. And one of the things I love about tech is at the intersection of I'll say resources, and resources I mean very, very broadly, the quality of the people, the impact of the research, the quality of the facilities, and like the collegiality, like just people are kind and nice. That intersection, I think tech optimizes in a way that's really, really hard to find a lot of other places, right? So, I mean, the people up here, like, I actually like them, right? Like, I'm not saying we're all best friends or anything, but like, these are people that I enjoy being around because they're kind people, they're nice people. I mean, Mark, I've known for 20 years. Our families are friends. Like these are people that I want to be around. And so don't discount like being in a place with people that you want to be around, because 5 years is a long, long time. And so you want to be intellectually stimulating. You want to have a chance to do what you want to do technically. But I would just say, like, don't discount being happy while you're doing it. So being in a city and around people that feel kind of life-giving to you that's important too. And I think that this is a really, really good place to find that.
Yeah, I totally echo that. I've been associated with a couple other pretty well-ranked universities that don't have nearly the kind of collegiality we have here. So I won't say them on a recording, but they're not hard to find. So it's
yeah. Yeah, same. So actually, maybe I'll also, and another question that I always remember someone eventually asks, so I'll just ask it, is kind of twofold question. Why, what was the process that led you to decide that you wanted to become a professor or stay in academia? So I'm sure some people are thinking about this and are very unsure whether or not it's actually something they want to do. And so I think sort of some insight into how you made that decision. And then maybe a related question is sort of like, why did you, what factors led you to becoming a professor here at Georgia Tech?
Well, so for me, the number one reason to go into academia and be a professor was to work with students like all of you and the ones I've been working with. That's by far the number one part of my job. Coming to a place like Georgia Tech, I knew I would be around students that were absolutely top notch. My colleagues from grad school who have gone on to be professors in other places have not had the nicest things to say about their students or their colleagues. And I say the exact opposite. So for me, that was a big draw for Georgia Tech. As an academic, as a professor, you definitely have a lot of flexibility to work on what you want. If you can convince someone that you have an idea that's worth funding and pursuing, then you can work on it. And that's a really just outstanding level of flexibility that you won't find in industry at all. So for me, that was a deciding factor.
I guess I'll just say a comment. I mean, so if you're even thinking about academia, right? I was somebody that didn't even think that was like going to be possible at the end of a PhD, right? I just assumed, I was lucky enough to get into a PhD program and thinking about going an academic route just didn't even seem like it would be on the table. But I just want to point out, or at least mention, that if this is even something that crosses your mind, you can, gun for it, right? Start early, think long-term about this. And Georgia Tech is a place where we produce great faculty members and we have great resources to help you find faculty jobs. Chris runs an excellent course on finding faculty positions and getting kind of your package ready. So if this is even something that's like, vaguely in your mind, think about it early, talk about it early, talk to us about it. And I think Georgia Tech is a great place to kind of go that route if that's of interest to you.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. I was actually going to say, so we developed, it's actually 2 courses. One that's intended for very early on that kind of talks about what is this job? What does it involve? Is it something that you think you might want to do? You would take that in like your first, maybe like second year, like very early on in the program. And then practicum, I'm doing that right now with a group of students who are going to go on the job market this fall. And we work on preparing your materials, like very hands-on work doing that. So we have different touch points along the way, completely separate from your advisor, who should be a big help in this as well, to try and help people prepare. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I can. So I also wasn't one of those students who know from day one that they want to go to academia. I kind of fell in love with the research along the way, more towards the end of my PhD. And I just liked it so much that I thought that's what I want to continue doing. And if, as Sam mentioned, if you're even thinking about it right now, that's great, actually. And that's something you want to communicate with your advisor, because, they can help you towards the end, especially write proposals or review conference papers, teach sometimes up for the professor, and do things that's going to prepare you academic world, and then take the courses such as the ones that Chris mentioned. And you can also always go to internships during the summers to just see what it's like in the industry world. But the nice thing is that, all of these options are open for you. And if you're thinking about it, just keep an open mind and try both. And then by the end of your PhD, you can decide. If you're still undecided, you can always take a postdoc and give yourself a little bit more time to think what you want to do later.
So I might be a little unusual, at least in this group, in that I knew coming into grad school, this is what I wanted to do. Not to belabor the story too much, I grew up in deep poverty, and access to education changed the trajectory of my family for generations. And I wanted to be part of providing that to other people. But I'm also a geek. And so I love technology. And so the idea of being able to do that in the context of building technologies that can also change lives, that intersection, the only place I could think of to hit that intersection of mentoring and developing people while developing technology that can change the world, this sort of job was the only place I could imagine doing that combination of things.
All right, so I want to ask, so this is inspired by a specific question from the online audience. So I want you guys to talk a little bit about the process of finding an advisor. So I think some people basically will be coming in already knowing for sure who they're going to work with. They have, maybe you even have like a GRA offer from someone, maybe not, but people kind of come in with a kind of a range of backgrounds or a range of kind of levels of how sure they are about who they want to work with. And I will say the specific question that inspired this, and I think there's a very specific answer that I'm sure one of you will give, it was, if I was already interviewed by a professor before being given admission, do I still have freedom to explore different options? And so I think, how this works is actually different at every university. So I'm going to ask you guys to answer that. But before, I'm going to tell Elliot. So we have our last member of our faculty panel is here. So yeah, that's okay. That's okay. So Elliot was teaching this morning. And what time does your class start? 8 o'clock?
8 to 9.
Oh my gosh.
That's how much I love students.
Yeah.
Oh, repeat the joke. It's not funny anymore. I said that's how much I love students, which now means nothing. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just, Elliot can introduce himself, but I will say Elliot is kind of a hybrid member of both the faculty panel and the Georgia Tech graduate student panel, which will be coming later. And actually, we're going to kick him out for it, but.
That's good to know. Thanks. I appreciate that. Glad I walked all the way up here. So I am Elliot Moore. I'm the associate. I'm gonna have a loud voice, apparently.
Why don't we do this?
Okay, so I'll change position. One thing you remember when I came in. So I'm Elliot Moore. I'm the associate chair for undergraduate affairs. I'm not sure how many else here, but I was a student here, actually. I started here in 1993. And I'd never like to give that because that lets you think how old I am, but I started here in 1993 and I got my PhD here also. And I worked at Georgia Tech Savannah for some time. Then I came back here in 2013. And since that time, since 2017, I've been the associate chair for undergraduate affairs, but I have worked or been a part of Georgia Tech at every level, undergraduate, graduate. I was a postdoc. I've been a faculty member. I've been in institute committees, all that kind of stuff. So that's just the way it is. Some faces I actually recognize in this room, but that's enough for me. You were asking questions or answering questions now. So.
We just address your, okay, choosing a.
But
All
it's
right,
still.
so it's just going out to cyberspace. Okay. So as far as choosing an advisor goes, so I don't in general like to compare Georgia Tech to other schools, but this is one case where I will do so. In other schools that maybe you're looking at or being admitted to, you are basically slotted into maybe a rotation program or a specific professor coming in there, and we don't do that deliberately. And there is a reason for it. Mainly that we have 100+ faculty here, and we have people researching everything. We do not cluster hire, which means we don't hire a bunch of professors in one area and leave other areas unfilled. What that means is when you have 100 faculty spread out, students coming in can very quickly identify a half dozen or so professors that line up with what it is that you might be interested in doing. And so we don't necessarily slot students to specific groups because we understand that there is a process that may take a year, it may happen right away, of finding your home. And there's various ways to go about that. You can do research for credit. You can just proactively just kind of put your name around and just ask for research positions. And it just works out. Like we don't have students fall through the cracks. I think it's actually a very positive thing that you sort of get that space to explore if you want to. If you have interviewed or you have a GRA offer or you've talked to a specific group, you are definitely not restricted to that group. You can work with anybody, even outside of ECE. And that's in my view, a very serious positive thing about Georgia Tech because we have that size and that breadth.
Morris is spot on. I'll just say that that can cause some people to feel anxiety, right? If you have another program where like you know exactly what lab you're going into and you're comparing that to here where you're like, wait, I'm not getting assigned into what lab am I going to work with? If you can, let some of that go, right? Like there are so many opportunities here. It's just such an opportunity-rich environment. I understand the natural kind of inclination that the uncertainty of coming into that would cause some angst, but it works out. Like just trust us. We've been doing that for years. It works out. People find great places in great labs to do work that's exciting to them. It's better for you that you have some time to figure that out because I'm going to tell you, we're going to have a lot of fun in this visit weekend. The half hour you're going to meet with a professor is not enough time to know whether you should be working in their lab and whether that's a good fit. So come in, do a semester rotating in a lab that you get to pick. It's not a rotation problem set up for, or a rotation program set up for you. Do it again with another professor. Take that time to figure out what the right fit is. The fit is super important. There are so many opportunities here. You will find a fit, okay? But you have to just kind of trust the process and know that that's going to happen because it's such an opportunity-rich environment here, okay?
So I guess I'll just add, sorry, Elliot, were you going to say something? Okay, maybe just a couple logistic things. I mean, a small number of you might be here with GRAs already, right? Most of you are here with GTA offers, right? Some of you are here with GRA offers from a particular faculty member. My only caveat to these comments are if you have a GRA offer and you're seriously considering not working with whoever gave you the GRA offer, I mean, this is probably a conversation that you should be upfront with and candid with, you know, kind of right away, right? Because that faculty member is committing funding and resources to you. And so just to avoid sort of unfortunate situations, this is a conversation you should have kind of quickly, but that's a minority of you. Most of you are here with GTA offers. That gives you a lot of flexibility to look around. My other comment would be is different faculty members like to do this differently. Some people really like the structure of the formal special problems, and you can come take that and you get, you know, an actual course kind of situation with that. Other faculty members are more sort of, sure, show up to my lab meetings. We'll see if it's a fit. some people kind of do a little bit more than that. Come to my lab meetings. Let me give you a small project, but I'm not going to do it a special problem. So there's a lot of heterogeneity in the way we run. It's a big department, so everybody has sort of a different kind of strategy for how they do this. So that might cause, just something to be aware of. Different faculty members have different preferences for how they're going to try to look for new grad students, I guess.
Yeah, so we have. I'll repeat the question so that the online people can hear it. It's so the question, I guess someone said that some people take up to or over a year to find an advisor. And the question was like, is there a specific timeline that's recommended for this?
There is a timeline associated with doing your proposal. We changed that a couple of years ago. I don't remember what the timeline was. Within a certain number of semesters, you're supposed to have found some kind of topic. But I think that having been a student here, I think that I can't stress enough, the personality of our faculty is widely varied. So everyone has a different way of going about doing it. So I would worry less about how long it's taking than finding the right situation that you can be comfortable with, because this is the person going to be pushing you to publish, pushing you to whatever your career objectives might be. And that's going to affect your work-life balance too, right? So you want to make sure that you can work with this person also. So I don't know what your preferences are. So I think you have to take time to make sure it's the right fit and it's the right topic and those kind of things. I didn't worry as much about that as making sure that I was comfortable with where I was. Although we have had students that will switch too, that can happen. But I'm less concerned about the time frame of getting it right.
Yeah, one thing that I'll just say real quick is the other side of the process that we're describing here is that this puts the impetus on you, right? If you go just sit in your classes and take classes for 2 semesters and you don't reach out to any faculty, you don't proactively talk to any faculty, you're going to find yourself in kind of a challenging position, right? No one's going to come find you and say, well, no one's going to come find you during that period and say, hey, we found a good person for you to match with. Like, so you drive this process here, right? So I would say everyone's kind of hesitant to put a number on it, but I'll just say very pragmatically, if you get to the end of your first year and there's not kind of forward momentum to matching with an advisor, like you're probably going to be having a conversation with Matthew Block, the chair of graduate studies here, saying, hey, what's going on? Like, what have you done to try and do this? Okay, let's figure out a plan, right? Maybe something you had gone a little sideways that you weren't making this forward progress. So, no one's going to put like a hard number on it, but I'll tell you, at the end of a year, if there hasn't been some forward progress on this, there's going to be a discussion, happening somewhere to say like, hey, what's going on and how do we fix this? Right? Is that fair? Does anyone disagree?
I was going to say the same. I would try to find an advisor by the end of year 1, but it's not a set number, but that's a good practice because you want to get out in 5 years roughly, so you can give 1 year to find the right fit and then spend the rest in one lab. And it happens a lot. You may switch labs, but it's better to have someone by the end of year 1.
The only other comment I'll say is that might sound kind of scary, but we really don't have very many students at all that get to the end of the year 1 and don't have an advisor. Matthew, I don't think is here. We could ask him for the numbers, but I mean, it really is quite rare. I mean, we have enough faculty, enough active projects, enough going on that things work out.
Yeah, my impression is that it's single digits of students who at the end of the first year haven't kind of figured out who they're going to work with. And I think, we haven't exactly touched on this, but it is like part of this is that for reasons that are probably not worth getting into right now, research assistant positions, most professors pay much better salaries than being a TA. So it is a rate, it's a several hundred, usually a multiple $100 raise per month. If you start working as a research assistant, and maybe more importantly, it's kind of more fun. I think being a TA has value, and we can people want to ask about like what it's like to be a TA, we can discuss that. However, I think doing research is more fun than being a TA, definitely grading. And so
As
people, I think, are very self-motivated to just switch.
as the associate chair for undergraduate affairs, we do, however, need good TAs for for our classes. So sure, it's more fun to do research, but we do need good TAs to help us with our undergraduate classes. And the other thing I will say this is that one of the reasons why I kind of well, actually, the reason I stayed at Tech as opposed to going to MIT because my wife was in Georgia. So my wife, then why am I telling you this? Anyway, the point of all this, say your decisions are impacted by your life, right? So it's not, all your decisions are not internalized to this square footage in Atlanta. So you have to consider your life and in addition to these other decisions you're making. And I think that what the advantage here, one of the other reasons why I say it here is that, and I think you'll find is true here, working in the academic office, we want you to succeed. So whatever rules or things are put in place are not punitive in nature. They're not designed to punish you for not doing well or not making progress. They're designed to encourage you to move forward. So if you think about when we give timelines and rules and those kind of things, you should never think of it as, oh, I got to do this, or they'll do this to me, or they'll do that to me. It's all about, we want you to be successful and we want you to find the right fit. And if you're finding you're having a problem with that, I know Matthew, and I know the graduate office, we have multiple people in that office you can just set up a time with and discuss what's going on. And we are designed to try to support you and help you to make sure that you're getting the help you need. So if you find you are struggling and not making connections, then come to the academic office and we'll help you make connections.
And sorry, I'm just going to add something about the GTA offer versus the GRA. First of all, you know, the people who get the GTA offers are the very top students. So it's that most of the times the faculty really want to hire them, but because they have basically funding for a full year, you guys are the ones who can go and shop around. So you have the kind of the higher hand, if they say. So just feel free to proactively talk to a lot of faculty and know that you're the one who's kind of making the decision here because you're funded for a full year.
And then, okay, so I'll add just a little bit about the logistics of these GTA offers, right? So, and maybe Elliot, plug your ears for this part, but your goal as a GTA should be, you all are top students, right? You're going to be matched to classes that you know, probably forward and backwards. Your job should be to do that part of your job efficiently and quickly. So then you have a lot of other time to spend looking for research projects, doing well in your courses and things like this. Don't sacrifice quality for Elliot's sake, but you can do these things efficiently. I'm sure all of you can do that.
I have a question for them, actually. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, after you.
Elliot
So-
would love you to teach.
So,
Do you want to answer that? I mean, generally speaking, people
so
don't
yeah.
do.
So the question was, if you have a GRA, can you work as a TA?
I mean, numerically, you can get partial appointments, but that would require some kind of special arrangement with your advisor. I mean, speaking of advisor, how comfortable are you with that?
One of my students.
Well, I'll just say briefly, you know, I had a student that thought he might want to teach, didn't have a lot of teaching experience. He was on a GRA. I arranged with the academic office for a split appointment like this. He did not take over full TA duties. I had him come in and prepare basically like one module and deliver a module in the class. So he did, you know, a couple weeks worth of teaching, got some experience, had stuff he could write about in his teaching statements. You know, we split the cost between the academic office and the grant that he was working on, did that for one isolated semester, and it was purposeful to get him some experience. You don't want to be diluting your time just as a hobby, right? But if you want some experience, I mean, there are ways to do that. There are ways, you have to negotiate this with your advisor and with the academic office, but there are totally ways to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what I was gonna say, but I mean, I assume the question is motivated by trying to get some teaching experience in case you want to go do an academic position. There are ways to do that, probably more towards the end of your PhD, that are kind of different than a GTA, and so those can be arranged. Yeah.
That was my question, actually. What I was going to ask is, some students get their PhD, and I'm wondering, is anyone actually interested in going into academia? Like you actually want to be a college professor. Okay, that's actually pretty high, I would think. Is that normal?
I don't know. That's
It kind of feels high to me because I mean, because you're not doing it because you're going to get paid more. that's not the motivation. And clear, if it was, then well, that's not why you do it. So I think that in that sense, yes, getting some teaching experience is helpful. So in those cases, yes, you do want to. But traditionally, when we hire, it's like I'm teaching 2026, for example. So in my course, I would not want someone that was on a split appointment because 2026 requires we need all their time. So there's no time to split. But in special situations like that, yes. So I mean, it can happen, but the norm for certain courses is it takes your time. You need to devote the time to it.
yeah. I've had several students actually do this where they will be kind of partly my GRA, but then also partly working as a TA for me or even another class because they want the experience. I think it's a good experience. I will just say, even if you're not going into academia, time spent like either in office hours or in actually in front of a classroom is really good. It just like helping you to learn how to think on your feet and communicate hard things to people who don't understand them. Like this is a very important skill in lots of other contexts.
I was going to say the same thing. Super valuable. I did this as a graduate student. Mark, I think I remember you did something like this as a graduate student. It does more than anything else I can think of to build your technical communication skill, which is one of the most important tools in your toolbox in any professional career, right?
Yeah, so the question is, what do you need to do differently if you're going into academia or versus industry, I guess.
Yeah, others might have opinions, but we talk about this a fair amount in the class I teach. So I'll just say, part of this is very practical. It's making sure that you have professional networks built out in the right places, right? It's a different professional network if you're going to be working in an industry segment versus, an academic sort of career. So part of it is very practical. Part of it intellectually is starting to think about the research that you do and the publications you have as being part of one piece in a research program with a long-term vision. If you're going to be interviewing for faculty jobs, you're going to spend 5-ish years here, you're going to have a handful of papers, and then you're going to have to go out and talk about what your research vision is. If we hand you 5 or 10 grad students for 5 years, what are you going to accomplish as part of that vision, right? And heading into industry tracks, I think, those that have spent more time in industry should answer this, but my impression is the interest is more about what skills you have built and how that fits into the mission of a particular industrial segment. So you can think maybe a little more applied, maybe a little more individual about the research results, whereas it's really, really important in an academic track that you are building everything toward a comprehensive vision for a research program. Like you are going to lead a research program. That's what you're going to do as your job. Like you're not going to be a researcher anymore. That's not what this job is about. So it's kind of early on setting the trajectory through your thesis work to think holistically and think about what comes after that, and everything kind of building up to that. I don't know. Does anyone disagree with that or have other things?
Yeah, I'll just add a little bit. I mean, I think, I don't know if it's your job to figure out how to differentiate quite yet, but this is something you should talk to your advisor about, right? The earlier you talk to your advisor about maybe I want to do an academic track, the more they can help you kind of get steered along that path. I mean, because there can be lots of small things. Like it's a good idea to have a little bit of proposal writing experience by the time you finish, right? And that's something your advisor can bring you on. But if you're going to industry, maybe that's not so valuable. Small things like if your advisor might have a project with proprietary data that can't be published, that could be useful for industry. You can explain how you worked with this company, you worked with proprietary data, and you did this, that, and the other, but it wasn't publishable. But for an academic track, that may not be so great, right? So there can be lots of little things, but your advisor can help steer you on this path quite a bit.
I'll also add that keeping a broad 30,000 foot view, and not super specializing too early is the other thing, because a PhD tends to be very specialized, but once you kind of go into academia, you've got to broaden big time. And so maybe spend your first 2 years doing more exploring. You could jump around to different projects if you want to, and do lots more reading and literature review, and just keep a broad perspective before you kind of zoom in on a thesis topic. That will kind of help you a lot with that perspective as you build out that vision that Chris was talking about.
So I let them answer first because I'm sure they were more organized in their graduate program than I was. I think I was the least organized graduate student in the history of graduate students here, even being at Georgia Tech, because when I got to Georgia Tech, I was an undergraduate. I was going to the Air Force. I was going to go in the Air Force, and that was my goal. And it changed halfway through. I didn't know I was going to grad school. And the reason I wanted to go to grad school because I wanted to teach. So I wanted to teach, but I didn't want to go to teaching school. I didn't want them to give me 10 courses a semester. So I like teaching. I like research. I kind of like both those things. Is there a way for me to do both those things? These are the things I'm thinking to myself, because none of them in my family went to college. So here I am in a research level 1 school, and I'm the only one. There's no one in my sphere to talk to about what does that look like? Who else knows about this? No one. So even my advisor, this is how bad it was. And I was writing a paper for something. My advisor was only partially paying attention to me, because he did with all of his students. And I guess he assumed I knew what was going on. So I wrote a paper to something I thought went really well over here. I got all the way to the end of the paper. I wrote it. It was done. I was like, this is great. I'm going to submit it here. As he had been saying, yeah. So then he read it, and it's like, oh, you can't submit this there. I said, why? It's because it doesn't fit. Are you working this whole time? I said, yeah, I sent you information before this. Why are you telling me this now? And he's like, you can't do this. Then he's like, oh, you really don't know how this works, because it really was new to me. The concept of going to grad school wasn't something I realized. So you're talking about how do you prepare for one versus the other. And from my perspective, I kind of made it up as I was going along. I don't suggest that route necessarily. Plan as much as you can, but I do think there is freedom for zigging and zagging from time to time as you're planning and as you're going along. So as being at Georgia Tech, I know that students stress when they feel like their plan has been deviated. So don't get stressed when you make a plan and you deviate in some way from that, because there might be some deviations that are part of that. So, and I made it, right? So I'm the associate chair for undergraduate affairs. I knew from the beginning I wanted to work in college administration. So there's a path that I followed, and here I am. So I mean, give yourself some freedom and flexibility to adjust as you go along. That's the only thing I would say.
So there's actually a couple questions online that I want to make sure I don't forget about. So one I think is very straightforward. The question was just about what classes you'll be TAing for and how that happens. And so if you are supposed to be a TA, then I will just say you are going to be matched in classes. You will be asked in August, what classes do you want to be a TA for? And you're not going to be asked, you're not going to be thrown into a situation where you're a TA for a subject you have no expertise in. So there's also another question that I think people are curious about. So the question was just, do we have mentors who will guide us to do research in the first year? So if you want to get involved in research right away, what's the best way to do that? You kind of have already hinted at this, but.
Well, I mean, if you're a TA, then I like what was said earlier about you're going to naturally put in place with faculty in different, like for example, in 2026, we have a handful of DSP professors that teach that. So you'll get to mix with those groups. And I think through their conversation with someone else, I think getting involved in research is really about making connection, right? Not emails. Emails are easy. And to be honest with you, some of our faculty, if the email is 3 lines long, they won't read it. So you can't say, oh, I emailed you. They're like, maybe. That might be a factual statement, but it doesn't help this conversation. So what do you want to say? So I think that you have to find ways to actually be in the sphere, in the environment of the people that you think about going to work with. You got to talk to them and meet with them in some way, whether it's a class or you're TAing for them or something. But you have to create some sense of relation with the faculty in order to, beyond just I put my submission, I put my email somewhere or something like that. And that might work too if they're looking for you. But I think it's important. I think someone else part about the impetus on you. You have to get comfortable just introducing yourself cold and just talking to people.
So I'll mention a couple of things. It's been said before, we've got the research for credit option, special problems, I think is what it's called. And a lot of faculty are very open to that. It's kind of an easy way to try out an area or try out a certain project. You know, you'll be networking with your fellow grad students, and some of those grad students will be in different labs. And so that's one way in. But also, you know, remember, like, while the impetus is in some ways on you, like we're number one, very approachable. And at the end of the day, like we want to hire students. Like we want students in our group. So it's not like we have this big door and we're trying to keep students out. We're not. Like we need you all to help us do the research. So that makes the problem a lot easier, right? Because we have a problem too if we don't hire students and we don't bring students into our research. So.
Sorry, I'm just gonna add that like in many cases, my TA has come to me and said, like, this is my research interest. I'm looking for an advisor, and I can guide him or her to, you know, either tell them like this colleague, I know they have money, they're looking for a student to hire. So just reach out to people, use whatever network you have, tell them what you're looking for, if you're open for different research options. And I'm sure everyone's gonna help you find the good match.
Yeah, I mean, and just from a logistical point of view, like you have a few opportunities, right? Now is a great opportunity to find faculty and see if you can work with them, you know, a little bit in the fall or something like this. The other time is if you move here in early August or something like this. I mean, that's when I get a lot of emails and I read them. I mean, if somebody says I've been admitted to Georgia Tech, I'm coming to Georgia Tech, I am a GTA for the first semester, you know, but I'm interested in what you do. Can I work with you? I mean, these are the opportunities. These are like logistically, these are when connection points are probably most probably easiest. You could set it up your first semester. I mean, this is something you could talk about today when you meet with faculty, it's something you could talk about in early August. And then you just, as long as you're enrolled, I guess by the end of enrollment period or whatever, you're good to go. So I would start as early as fall.
Just really specifically, that has to be set and enrolled by the end of the first week of classes. So you can't, like Wednesday, the first week of classes, email a professor and say, can we set up a special problems for this semester? So that's why it's really important. You start, you know, end of summer, you know, with a few weeks to a month before things are going to start emailing, you know, the people that you've had good conversations with, connections with, and exploring those possibilities. A lot of people do them in their first semester, but you've got to give yourself a little bit of lead time to get it set up.
Yeah, you don't have to do it your first semester.
No.
Lots of people don't. But I will say I think it's a good idea because it also is frankly easier. Well, it's more flexible coursework than like another graduate level class with like weekly problem sets or something like that. And it's kind of nice to have that in the mix because your first semester is always pretty busy, and it's nice to have something that's pretty flexible in terms of how you distribute the workload. And
I'm going to add one more piece of, I guess, you know, plus side to these special problems is that because it's not connected to a research grant, there's a lot more flexibility to shape the project to be something that's interesting to you, and it could lead to something, you know, right off the bat. So, you know, that's your chance to kind of set your own agenda a little bit on what you're doing.
yeah, it's especially great if you are planning to apply for an NSF fellowship in your first year and you want to have a recommendation letter from someone at Georgia Tech that can actually say something concrete, as opposed to this person was in my class and they got an A and they're doing great.
And quite possibly a publication out of it too.
Yeah. I think you had your hand up earlier. So I guess it sounds like the question is that right now you have a GTA offer and there's a professor who's interested in making you a GRA offer. And I think there were sort of two questions. Is like one is like just like the mechanics of making that
if you take
that
a GRA
switch.
offer and you switch
And then
advisors.
also, can you switch advisors later?
Well, the GRA is associated with, you mean switch advisors and keep the GRA?
No,
Generally.
Like, means, after that semester, if that's not what he wants,
Yeah.
can he switch to a different lab with a different?
Is it a full GRA or is it a top up? Do you know? Like, yeah, so sometimes, sorry, an advisor gives you a full GRA. So they say, don't take the TA offer and come work with me full time. That's a full time. So if you choose that, you're showing your level of commitment to the advisor, right? If say things don't work out for whatever reason, obviously you're not bound to, work with that advisor, but that's the intention. A full GRA means you're working for them, means that you're kind of not, at least you're transparent if you want to look for other options. But sometimes you're given a GTA, so you're doing your TA work, but on top of it, an advisor offers you a fractional RA offer. That may have a little bit more leeway for, looking for other options. But my suggestion is talk to the advisor and ask them this question, upfront, right?
I'll just add, we never want to see students orphaned. And so in the small number of cases where a student is in a research group and finds that it's not a good fit, there's always going to be support. I think if Matthew were here, he'd probably agree. There will be TA support to help make the transition and find another advisor, because we are not interested in having students floating around without a direction. We just don't let that happen. So
But-
there is support if you want to switch anywhere along the way.
Yeah, but concretely, I would advise not accepting the GRA offer if you don't want to work with that person, right? I mean, yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, I guess, so it's a tricky dance, right? I mean, because that person, they have a project, they need somebody to work on that project for 4+ years. They think you're the right person for it, so they're offering you a GRA. So I totally get it. I mean, if you're not fully sure yet, I mean, of course, but just be slightly careful with this, right? Because, I wouldn't advise anybody to accept a GRA offer if you think there's a strong chance you're going to find somebody else.
Yeah,
like
I will also say you might never be sure. So whether or not I had made, I still wonder, did I make the right choice?
Yeah, and it's like any relationship. How much you like your advisor will ebb and flow over your 4 or 5 years, and by the end, you might have,
Concretely, though, I will also say there are like discrete times when you can make changes to your to the setup. So, any time between now and basically like the end of the first week of classes, you could switch from being a TA to an RA if you find the right match. Once the semester starts, you're kind of stuck with that for the semester. So you can't be a TA and then decide I don't like being a TA halfway through the semester and stop. I mean, I guess you could, but
Nope.
You certainly, like, the Georgia Tech is not going to facilitate this this transition.
but there are plenty of GRA offers to get processed like right in that week or
Yeah.
two, right before the semester starts, when faculty know what projects they have on the ground and everybody's trying to do the matching problem.
Yeah, I think I just want to reemphasize a point here, which is technically, yes, you can switch. And if things are not working well in a situation, there is support to help change that situation, move to another lab, things like that. But from like a personal point of view, when an advisor is making a full GRA offer to someone, I mean, you're going to sign paperwork that says this is my advisor, right? It's not just an employment agreement where you're coming in and working for a semester. When an advisor is making an offer like that, like the intention is you are going to come in and embed and you're going to move that project forward. If you feel like I'm in a place where I just want to look around, like I'm not sure, like I agree, I would not accept that full-time GRA and look around while you're doing that, right? I would go, if you're accepting that GRA, I would go in with the notion, like, this is my advisor. I'm going to try and make this work. And if I get a year down the road and it's not working, then we can fix that problem then. But I would not go in and take that GRA and keep kind of shopping for advisors. I think that would be conflict isn't the right word, but like there's a mismatch there in what's being signaled by offering and accepting a full-time GRA and what you would be doing. So it's fine either way, but if you're not sure and want to keep shopping, that would be a conversation to have with this person and say, like, I think I'd like to do a special problems in TA for a semester instead and try and get this figured out. And then if everything's going well, I'll come in January full-time with you, right?
See the guy in the back.
Back to the special problems course.
Yeah, you would do one or the other of those. If you're in a GRA, you'd be signing up for a different course. It would be research, what do they call it? It's like PhD research hours. It's what counts towards like your dissertation work. You know, the special problems is intended for a temporary, like I'm trying something out, you know? So they're kind of separate things. Like you would do a special problem if you were on a TA or a fellowship and you were trying a lab out. If you were on a GRA, you would register for a different course number. It wouldn't be called a special problems. It just is, it kind of counts for something different in your degree program. No, RAs, TAs all get processed like they come in semester chunks. They have to be set at the beginning of the semester. They end at the end of the semester. They're just structurally at the university. You can't change them kind of midstream through a semester.
Yeah, I would just about TAs is that, and so for TAs in particular, I mean, one of the reasons for that is that if you're the TA, there actually is, in some case, where meaningful case, the TA should actually have things they're responsible for. So we don't want to reduce your hours for a course when the instructor actually needs you for all those hours. So it's not malicious. It's just a function of logistics.
I will just say too, like that does happen sometimes, but I wouldn't say it's a particularly common thing to have a split, like mostly a TA, a little bit GRA. It can happen, but I wouldn't say it's like, it's not a super common thing that happens. I wouldn't be expecting that to be the situation. I can talk not very well, but I can talk a little. I mean, there are programs. Yeah. So the question was, are there entrepreneurial opportunities available for students? So there is actually right here in Tech Square. There is a whole kind of ecosystem around entrepreneurship. So there are organizations, if you want to go look these up later, Venture Lab, ATDC. They're basically like incubators and things like that that try and help get research from Georgia Tech labs into the marketplace. And we actually just hired a VP level position that is, I forget the exact title, but it's basically VP for like commercialization activity. And he actually is an ECE faculty member that's in that role. He's done several successful startups. There are also programs, a student of mine that's done, it's called the TIGER program, it's some acronym, where they put technical students together with business students from the business school here and with law students from Emory to talk about like IP law. And they form project teams where they spec out different case studies of bringing technology from the labs into market. So there is an ecosystem here for that. I would also say it's a priority of the Institute to grow that ecosystem. There's a whole program called Create X, which is essentially trying to teach people how to do entrepreneurship. It's been mostly focused at the undergraduate level so far, but I think a big push for them right now is to grow that into graduate students, postdocs, and other people past undergraduate that want to engage in those sort of activities. So it is a pretty common thing. I think just on this panel, you don't happen to have any people who have gone down that road. I'm probably on the doorstep with a couple of things right now, but I haven't done it myself. So those things exist, but it has to be something that you want to do and you sort of seek out. For each of them, if you're going to start a company out of a lab, you need a PhD student who's going to be the one driving that forward. Like none of the professors are going to be the one like driving that to, you have to have a PhD student who's like, that's what I want to do with my life. So this would be a conversation to have with any potential advisor. How excited are they about that? How excited would they be about having a student who wanted to push an entrepreneurial sort of path out of the lab?
And my prior advisor actually did start a company with his student, but the student chose not to finish their PhD. The research turned into a company, and then they just, in fact, I think they came back at the PhD later, but I mean, in the moment they created a company, and I think it's still going. So it was popular. So it happens.
The only small comment I'll add is I've never done it, but my understanding is if you have an idea and you want to patent it, I mean, Georgia Tech has gotten very good about supporting these patent processes, and the Institute will get behind you with these things. And I mean, the Institute at a kind of at a high level in the past few years has really started pushing these things and making it really easy to do. Companies, patents, things like that.
We probably filed 5 or 6 patents in the last year. Yeah. And Georgia Tech pays for that. Georgia, we've filed 5 or 6 patents in the last few years. Georgia Tech pays for all of that. I mean, they're making a decision. They turn some down and say, no, we're not going to pay for that. This is the flip side of them owning the intellectual property. Of what we all do here is they also take responsibility for that intellectual property and pay, it's, probably 5 figures of money that it takes to actually file and push a patent all the way through. So they own it if you do it here, but they also take the ownership of trying to push that forward when you tell them, they have to trust you, right? You have to tell them like, no, this is worth it. You should definitely protect this, right? Highly variable, depending on the lab and the research area. There's some where just going to an industrial internship every summer is the standard. That's how that segment works. There are others where internships in the summer are just not a thing for that research area. They stay through the summer and work.
We have TAs also.
Yeah, there
over
are
summer.
some TAs.
Just bringing that up. We do teach classes over the summer, so they're paid TAs, just switching it.
My students mostly stay through the summer. I think most of my students take one summer where they want to do an internship just to kind of get that exposure and that experience. But most of my students stay through the summers, most summers.
Yeah, my students always stay around for the summer, except my wife is having a baby this summer. And so a bunch of them are taking internships because they are correctly assuming that I'm going to be worthless. So
I guess I'll just add concretely. I mean, I think most advisors are prepared to fund you through the summer unless you choose to do an internship. I think that's the operating assumption.
And I'll just add something. That's something to ask. If you're trying to find an advisor, talk to the students of the advisor and ask them, what do their typical summers look like, or even if you want to go to academia versus industry, you can ask the grad students questions. Just reach out to them, say, how many go to industry, how many start a startup, right? Like, does the advisor, have they had startups, or have they been acquired? So these are the type of informations that you can get from the grad students, a lot of times more than the advisor themselves. So feel free to reach out to them and ask all of these.
Yeah. That's a really hard question to answer. But
Chris should have the answers
you're
to
the
this
best one.
question.
Yeah, I actually don't think that we keep statistics on that.
So
I mean, I could, I've in the first batch, you get some people that come in and say that they want to do a faculty position in the beginning. By the end, they say, no, I'm not really interested in that. You have others that come in not interested in that, and by the end, they're like, oh, I think I might want to do that. So I think there's a big difference in the answer to this question. If you're asking about, of the ones who come in wanting to do it, how many land those positions versus when they're going on the market, how many of those land those positions? I mean, I can tell you out of my lab, but we don't keep statistics on that very broadly. Out of my lab, I've had 2 recently go into a faculty position. One is at the Technical University in Copenhagen, which is the best place in the world to do what she does. It is the nexus for like hearing aid and cochlear implant research, which is her specialty. There is no better place in the world for her to do that. The other student I've placed recently is an assistant professor right now in biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins. If you happen to keep score on things like that, it's the #1 BME department in the country. The next one that's probably on that path just left and is headed into a postdoc. He's at University of Madison, Wisconsin, with probably a top tier person. If he goes this path, he will be in a premier faculty position. The other one, it's sort of pseudo faculty. Actually, Mark and I co-advise a student who is headed into science policy. So it's an intellectual, like faculty-like position, but will probably work at a think tank instead of a university. And he just landed basically one of the premier fellowships that is the pathway for people into artificial intelligence science policy in the country. He's going to start that this summer.
I'd also say that sometimes, like I had a student, for example, as she was doing her research, she discovered she did not want to be a faculty member at a Research 1 university. She wanted to be an academic faculty, but not at like Georgia Tech. She said, I don't want to be here. I want to go somewhere else. So she did get a faculty position. She had to, I'm not sure who I'm looking at anymore right there, but she did find a faculty position, but now she works at Arizona State University. So she's in ASU and she's happy and she's doing everything she wanted to do. So I think that this is what I was talking about. You know, you have a plan now and you have a thought about what you think your life's going to be like 5 years from now, but a lot happens in 5 years, as we know can happen. You know, life takes weird things. And I'm saying that give yourself space to adjust and to allow the things in your life to kind of gauge what you're doing in the next moment. It's good to have a plan, but you know, like they say, every fighter has a plan until they get punched. Right. So I'm not saying we're going to punch you. We don't do that anymore. We stopped that like in 1969. But the point of this is that I want to make sure you understand, give yourself the freedom to say, you know what, I don't want to go that way. I want to go this way, and realize that, again, because I recommend the academic office here, because Matthew's not here, talk to us. We want to see you succeed. If you find that your path is deviating or you're starting to worry about graduating or what your situation or circumstances are, then if you can't talk with your advisor, then come to academic office and talk to us, and we're going to help you get on path.
I guess maybe just the super short answer would be it's a wide range of types of institutions, domestic, international, you know, top tier R1s, you know, mid-tier mixed universities that do a mix of teaching and research, teaching focused institutions. I mean, our students get placed in all types. I don't have statistics to give you.
Yeah, and it also is just so advisor dependent. Might not be super useful having these kinds of statistics anyway. I mean, if you want to go into academia, I wouldn't advise choosing an advisor that's not very well plugged into their professional community, for example, right? So there's just these things you got to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. I would actually not be asking about statistics for our degree program. I would be asking what the history of the students graduating from a lab you are looking to work in is. Sam's absolutely right. Like, that's the relevant statistic for you, right? That will tell you immediately whether that person has built a network that can pipeline people into academic positions versus industrial positions. So look at the history of the group that you're looking at.
The caveat to that I would say is that, you know, a lot of our faculty don't have a history because they've been here for like 2 years. And so you can't ask their alumni. Those people are often the most plugged into the research community because they just got faculty jobs at Georgia Tech and had offers all over the place. So that can still be a great place.
Yeah, if you want to look at it, I was just noticing, if you want to see the old people that should have some history, look for the ones that show up to an event like this in jeans. If you want to see the people, you know, that have been here a little less time, they're still dressing in, you know, dress pants and button-down shirts. So if you're trying to figure out what to ask, that seems to be, I'm a machine learning person. I look for patterns. So if you're looking for a pattern, that seems to be it.
Sure.
Faculty.
Yeah.
The question is securing a grant student or faculty driven? That is one of the primary jobs we have as faculty members, is securing the resources to do the work. We may involve students sometimes in preparing that, but that should not be something you are thinking about or worrying about. You may be asked to help with it as part of the process. That is one of the most important jobs that the professors you're working with will have, is making sure you don't have to worry about things like that.
Yeah, the only other, if you're eligible for like NSF graduate research fellowships, these should be on your radar for sure. A place like Georgia Tech, you should definitely be applying for these if you're eligible for them. That would be my only caveat. And there's a handful of other prominent ones besides NSF, but yeah.
So who here is applying for a fellowship? Will be applying for a fellowship. Okay, so I want to offer you another resource actually here, particularly if it's NSF. Even though it's called an undergraduate professional communications program, it's targeted at undergraduates, but our staff there have successfully helped students write multiple. I put successful in the wrong place. Our staff has helped students write multiple successful NSF research fellowships, because they're accustomed to knowing how to write it. They will, if you give them enough time, they will read, they will give you feedback, they will help you tell the story, they will help you with all the little aspects of it, as far as not the content, the research content you got to get from your advisor, but as far as the grammatical, how it looks, how it reads to a panel, that kind of thing. They're a great resource. So if you get around to doing that, make sure that you make contact Christina Bourgeois and Anna Holcomb in that area, and they will help you.
There are also a lot of fellow students who can give you successful examples of these. Also,
we want you to get money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so if I go into academia, should I get a postdoc?
I think that's very field dependent, right? More on the sciencey side, you need postdocs, right? More like maybe computer science, machine learning, fewer years of postdocs. So there are cases that you get a faculty job right out of PhD. First of all, you have to feel ready for it yourself, and that you have given yourself enough time to have good record, a lot of publications. But some fields generally call for a postdoc. So it would really depend on what is your area. And I think your advisor would be the best person to guide you right at the end of your PhD if you're ready enough to apply or go for a postdoc. So I personally, I had an offer when I was a PhD student, but I decided to defer it and do a short postdoc because I didn't feel ready at the point. And I'm so happy that I did the postdoc because it just, gave me more exposure. I got, introduced to a different type of advising, a different university, and all of that. It was very beneficial for me. But you see both types, right? Some people do 4 or 5 years of postdoc. Some people just start a faculty position right after PhD. So these things vary a lot, right? The benefit of going somewhere else is that you get exposed to a completely different ecosystem and environment. The only good thing about staying in your own school is that if you have unfinished paper, like you were really close to doing something really cool, you just didn't have time, you want to stay as a postdoc in the same group. I personally recommend my students to go out and explore some new fields. But there's no like a generic prescription for this, I would say.
Yeah, and just another comment, by the time you get to that point, if you're trying to decide to do a postdoc, I mean, you're kind of on your own narrow path by that point, and decisions are kind of individual. So these are conversations you would have with your mentors by that point, and you would have these conversations. I mean, you start your PhD and you're kind of all on the same path, but you're going to all branch out and be doing something kind of specific, and these decisions are going to be very specific to your research, what experience you have and how things go. I also see kind of the need for a postdoc almost ebbs and flows a little bit with the economy, depending on how things are going. There's also seems to be this kind of a new thing where there's lots of prestigious postdoc fellowships that universities are creating that are designed to be pipelines for faculty positions. So my 2 cents are that the postdoc landscape seems to be evolving kind of rapidly, especially in electrical engineering right now.
Well, having spent my entire life academic career at Georgia Tech, I guess I'm the softie on the panel, and the older I get, the softer I get, I suppose, because I realize that I'm close to the end and to the beginning. But this is you're not my counselors here. You said, but anyway, is that I think that when I said when you start off with the plan, I hear a lot of these questions. A lot of these questions it feels are kind of designed around I don't want to make the wrong choice. Should I do this or should I do that? And the answer is do what fits you. There's no should. You can make a career out of whatever decision you make as long as you work hard and do the things you're supposed to do. There's not like, oh, you did that. That was the wrong decision. You shouldn't have done that. Learn from it and move on. So I think that also you realize in 5 years or 4 years or 10 years, however long it takes you to get through this program, your life's going to look different. Your priorities are going to be different. What I thought was going to be true of my life when I got to the point of making that decision wasn't true. There were other factors that were not a factor at this moment in my life. So that's what I mean. It's important to plan, and I'm glad that you're all here planning, but like I said, give yourself space for your life to change, for your life to kind of modify itself. And by the time you get to that point, it's not going to just be, is postdoc right or wrong? Should I go out or should I come stay in? There's going to be there may be other factors you have to factor in and then factor all of those in. So I may, like, for example, I said I didn't go to MIT. I got into MIT. I didn't go to MIT. And there are people that said that was a wrong choice. Well, 3 kids and a mortgage later, I don't think it was a wrong choice. There were things I gave up. I know that I gave those things up, but it doesn't feel like I gave up anything because I'm happy with the decision that I made, even though it wasn't the necessarily right choice. So the right choice is the one that you can live with. I think that's what you should boil it down to. And none of these answers are wrong. Do the one you can live with.
Sometimes in life, there are multiple right answers.
All right, we're actually supposed to have a break now. So why don't we thank our panel. Yes. Chris wants to say something.
I need to talk to the BioE students. So Jose Casco Rodriguez, Gabriela Castro, Jake Cook, Robert Pritchard, Alice Tor, Nadir Tala. There's been just a scheduling confusion. So please come check with me and we'll sort it all out. So don't go anywhere.
But yeah, see everyone here in 10 minutes. If you need to go to the bathroom, it's on the other side of the elevators through the lobby area.
Is Matthew coming? I saw him downstairs.
Matthew,
Fuck.
yeah, he was here earlier.
Oh, he was here, but then he left. Okay.
So what's in the box? These look enticing.
Yeah, they do.
Oh,啊，我当谁呀？
Леонид Данилович! Помолчите вы! Помолчите! Вы что, не видите? Я сейчас обращаюсь к человеку, от которого зависит моя, да что там моя, судьба всей Украины. Владимир Владимирович. Владимир Владимирович, заберите меня, пожалуйста, а? Ну хоть за толки, я вот тоже. Леонид Данилович! Заберите меня.
these back on. Number 3 and 1. So these are connected to this. Yeah. I'll just leave my stuff here. But this,
we can
so
just turn these off and
so
click on
I'm
it.
gonna, yeah, I think what'll happen is I'm gonna come back here at around 11:45.
Okay.
Like make a couple of announcements. And talk about lunch, but these need to be turned on to actually work. Okay. Let's see. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. If people want to make their way back to begin this graduate student panel here in a minute. It will take a minute, I guess. While everyone's sitting down, I have like 3 quick announcements to make. I'll be back in an hour or so, but first, just so that I don't forget, in the folders that you have, there are instructions on getting reimbursed for your local expenses. So I just want to make sure people actually saw that. That's the most important thing in that envelope, and the only reason for its existence is it has another envelope inside the folder that's sort of already addressed for where the receipts need to go. And there's a nice instruction sheet telling you what to do. Just hold on to receipts if you have any receipts to mail back, because we want you to actually get reimbursed for them. The other thing that I should mention is there's all this stuff over here. So the boxes just contain like shirts and a cup and just random Georgia Tech swag. They are labeled by size. So there's small on the left, medium, large, and so on. So if you want to grab one of those on your way out, you can. Also, there are these lovely blankets that the College of Engineering inexplicably provided to me yesterday, because they want you to have a warm, fuzzy feeling when you think about Georgia Tech, I guess. So you can also grab one of those. All right, but I'm going to leave and let the graduate students talk. So I'll be back in an hour or so, but I will not be eavesdropping. Don't worry. You can ask whatever questions you want to.
All right, so we're here for the student panel. We'll just let Mark leave just for a few seconds before we start. Yeah, no rush. We've got until 12. So yeah, thanks for you guys. Thanks for showing up, you guys. We were all in your shoes not too long ago, and this is a way for us to kind of give back and hopefully answer any questions you have about the school, student life, anything that will shape or affect your experience if you decide to join Georgia Tech in the coming fall. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions you have. This is your opportunity. So we'll just do a quick round of introductions, and then we'll get started with the questions. So my name is Hamed. I'm a 3rd-year PhD student in ECE. An interesting fact about me is, so my advisor is actually in CS. So Georgia Tech actually does encourage collaboration across departments. So if you are an ECE student, you don't necessarily have to have an advisor in ECE. you could have an advisor in CS. There are little things to keep in mind to get that to work out, but in general, the school does encourage, cross-department collaboration and things like that. And my research area involves the cloud, designing cloud infrastructures to accelerate latency sensitive workloads, all that good stuff. So I'll just hand it over and we'll do a quick round of introductions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you did a great introduction here. I'm Sam Talkington. I'm a second year ECE PhD student. It's great to see everyone and glad you all could make it. I remember this was like a really cool time visiting schools during PhD acceptance season. So I'm sure you all are very excited and have a lot of good opportunities coming your way. I am researching in energy systems and signal processing, kind of the mix between the two. So I do a lot of stuff with smart meter data, renewable energy, lots of different applications in that intersection. Yeah, and I'll just keep it short.
Hi guys, my name's Lakshmi Raju. I'm currently a fifth year PhD student in ECE. I work primarily in optics. I did my undergrad here at Tech too, so I've been here like forever. But I do love Atlanta and the city. I work in optics with Dr. Wenshen Tsai, and I'm currently funded by the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship. So if you have fellowship questions, feel free to send them my way. And it's nice to see you all in person.
Hi everyone, I'm Prasanna. I'm a third year PhD student. I work on ferroelectrics, more of VLSI and nanotech. I initially got admitted into the bioengineering program. And then I did a special problem with my current advisor who was then in the ECE department, and I had a change of major. So if you have any questions about changing majors or doing like a double major, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is ECE, E-S-I, simple. My technical interest group is controls and systems. Similar to Hamed, my advisor is actually from a different department, CS, interactive computing. I do robotics, machine learning, AI, those kind of things. If you have questions about that, I'll be happy to answer. Interesting facts. I did live both on and off campus, if you have questions about that. I served as a chair in the SGA outside my lab for a year. I worked Georgia Tech SGA for a year. So like about life outside the lab and your research. So
Bine, toate do Georgia Tech. Online recording the webinar.
So, yeah.
If you're just joining the Zoom, would you mind muting yourself just for? Thank you.
All right. So yeah, basically, if you have questions about any of that, I'll be happy to answer. And let's go. Start with any questions.
Yep, back there.
So yes, that's not true. You can be advised with professor outside EC, and professors in EC can also advise other students from other departments. I've seen both way. The way that it works is that, well, I had a background in robotics and control systems, and there are robotics professors in EC. It's not something like you don't have it in EC. Actually, Georgia Tech EC is like one of the largest in US in the country. So like you do have it, but I just found a professor that worked for me, like it fit my work culture, my work ethics, like the way that I wanted to work, the things that I wanted to add in my research, and that person was doing exactly what I wanted, and it just worked out. So, and yes, I am being paid by someone outside EC, and like the way it is like whenever I go to ECE, because that's my home school, like as a joke, they call me a traitor just because I'm working with someone else outside ECE, but it's again, like it's a joke and we laugh about it, but it's not true. You can be advised with professors outside ECE and the other way around.
I'm gonna reiterate the question for those who are online. So the question was, how does it work if you're an ECE student and you want to work with someone in a different department? And there's a good follow-up in the chat that says, is there any possibility to find a co-advisor? And the answer is yes. So in my case, I did not know who I wanted to work with when I first started. I did what a lot of people usually do, is what's called a special problem. So that's usually a semester or two that you spend with a professor doing, working on a specific project. And then at the end of the semester, if they're happy, if they have the funding, great, they'll hire you and you can continue working with them. So in my case, I did a special problem with a professor in CS. And it just worked out that our research interests were pretty aligned. And the only thing he had to do, so usually if you have an advisor, if you have someone who wants to fund you who's outside of ECE, you need to get what's called a co-advisor. But that could be avoided if you convince your advisor to become adjunct in ECE. So that's what they tell you when you first come in. They tell you need a co-advisor. But if you just tell your advisor to become adjunct, then it's not a problem. And that's what I did. I just asked him to become adjunct, and it was a very simple process. And he basically kind of joined ECE in that way.
Don't want to talk too much about this topic, but just to add a little bit quickly to that, your advisor does not have to, you don't have to have a co-advisor right away. Basically, the way it works is that you need to, if your advisor from a different department is not affiliated with ECE in any way, like adjunct or anything, the way that it works is that you need a co-advisor from ECE only when you're proposing or defending. So like during your research, you don't really need that. So like I'll be proposing in like a month from now, and I just selected someone from ECE to be my co-advisor. So like before, for the past 4 years, I never had a co-advisor. So yeah. Next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's pretty easy. So you generally
Sorry, I'm gonna just reiterate the question for the people who are on Zoom. So how does the process of changing majors happen here in Georgia Tech? So go ahead.
So typically, if you go and contact the academic advisors, they would typically not advise you to change your major immediately. As it was already pointed out, you can work in different majors for as long as you want without changing your major. But typically after 6 months, it would be considered a good time for you to shift your major, because though shifting majors is possible, shifting majors too often is frowned upon here. So after 6 months, I think would be a good time. It's just one form that you have to fill in, and you can just visit the academic office of ECE and have it done.
It's also much easier if you have a professor in that field that you want to switch to that's willing to fund you.
You'll have to show, or your advisor will have to show that he'll be funding you for the next 1 year if you have to shift the major.
Can you talk about the upsides or downsides of being in a big lab versus small lab, like 3 grad students versus 20, 30?
Yeah, so in the energy TIG, technical interest group, there's a lot of different lab sizes, varying lab sizes. So I'm in kind of a medium lab, and I have a lot of friends who are in both small and large labs. So it really depends on your working style, in my opinion, because in a large lab, you are ultimately going to have more resources in terms of, like, especially if you work in hardware, like you're going to have more equipment potentially, and you might also have several senior postdocs who really know what they're doing and are really available to mentor you. But on the other hand, you may not get very much one-on-one time with your advisor, and it may be kind of you may be sort of given more responsibility for directing your dissertation topic in a large lab, potentially. Every situation is different, but that's just what I've seen. And in a small lab, you know, you will get much more one-on-one interaction with your advisor. However, if you're struggling and you may not, there might be times where you do feel a little isolated, but that one-on-one experience with your advisor, who is most definitely an expert in your area, is really valuable. So, you know, I do think it kind of evens out, and it really just kind of depends on what you are looking for in your advising experience, and whether you prefer to be mentored by like people who are just a few years older than you, or like a professor.
Add on to that. So I'm in a small group. Right now there are 4 of us. And most of us are sort of older students, so we sort of work on our own projects. We make our own schedule, figure out what we want to do. So it's a little bit more self-starting because we're all sort of on different paths. But we do lean on each other. But again, yes, with a small lab, it's more do it yourself. But I sort of like the autonomy that gives me. So I can sort of plan my own projects and I don't have to sort of worry about splitting our resources. We've got one lab or we've got 2 labs and only 2 of us do experimental work. So we usually don't have to worry about schedules. So it's pretty nice.
Thank you guys. I'm not disagreeing with you, but my experience is a little bit different from what you guys said. So another interesting experience that I had might be useful for some of you is that I started at Georgia Tech with my advisor. Basically, my advisor established his lab when I joined his lab. And so like I was like one of the first PhD students that joined his lab. We didn't even have a lab name. Basically, we picked a lab name ourselves. And so we ordered all the computers in the lab, robots in the lab, we bought everything. It was interesting. It was a lot of more work probably than other people would experience. So a lot of people tell you that don't work with young advisors, the ones that are on the tenure track. They want like people, they want to get tenured, and so like they would expect much more than you from you. They want like they push you a lot for the deadlines and stuff, and also don't work with very senior professors because they just don't care anymore. Like they just are not going to be around. In my case, like my advisor obviously was a young one, and he was on the tenure track, and he wanted to get tenured. And I'm not gonna lie, it was like pushy sometimes. Like there was deadlines all the time, like 1-2 deadlines per semester. But that suited me. So like agreeing to Lakshmi, like I wanted that. The most important thing here is to make sure that it just fits you. Not everyone wants to be in a lab that is pushy, and not everyone wants to be in a lab that is not pushy. Like I wanted to be there, and I enjoyed doing every single one of those deadlines and projects and professors. One thing that was kind of like different from what Lakshmi and Sam said was that in a smaller group around us, basically you get kind of like, because there are not a lot of students, you get too much interaction with your advisor. And it's like to a point that you feel like you're being micromanaged. So like Lakshmi said, she's feeling autonomous, but like I feel autonomous because my lab is actually a very big lab. Like we have a lot of PhD students. I'm more autonomous. Like I schedule meetings with my advisor whenever I need him. And like, that just works for me. And I love that. But in a smaller groups, you get too much of your advisor sometimes. And it's just micromanaging to a point that like, I hate to be micromanaged. And so like, so similar to like what Hamid said, you do a special problem if you don't have a GRA right away, you try to see what the lab cultures are, like how professors work. And like, if that fits you, like some people actually like to be micromanaged. So I'm not saying it's bad, but I know people that are like that. So if you like to get too many inputs from your advisor, you could find someone that does that. So yeah, just try to take opportunity, take benefit of the opportunity that's given to you during your GTA, rotate in labs, or like talk to PhD students and realize, like basically find out like how the lab works and what the lab culture is. How do they basically the dynamic of the lab is kind of like something that you're looking for. So yeah.
Just a final note, something I tell all graduate students: don't pick the university based on the university, pick it based on the lab group. So talk to the current and past graduate students in the lab that you're interested in. Find out what the culture is like. 5 years is a very long time to be in a lab that doesn't mesh with you. And the research actually isn't as important as the people. Your research can change over time. It can grow, it can shift, but the people are still going to be there. So find an advisor and find a lab group that you would actually want to work with, because after 5 years, even if it's a great group, you want to leave. So if
It's a huge commitment, especially because there's money involved. You're getting paid. There are jobs. There are outside sponsors you have to deal with. Sometimes, like another thing that there is different in different labs. Some professors don't really like they deal with everything outside the lab. You just do your work and research. In my lab, for instance, that's not the case. We deal with the sponsors ourselves. Like we go to sponsor meetings. We handle the business, and so like it's you learn from it, but it's also hard and stressful. You got to make sure that you want to do that. So definitely take advantage of the opportunity that you have. Try to understand how the lab works, and if that fits you, just go for it. Again, 5 years is a long time. It's a very complex dynamic, especially because again, you're getting paid. There's work. There's industry involved. Just make sure that you want that, and so then commit. Do not commit before making sure that it fits you.
I guess I'll just add to it, not to keep it long. So it's also important to have a good group, and also collaborators are very important. If you're expecting a particular type of facility that you think you'll need for your research, also talk to your advisor about it. Be upfront, say that you would like to work in this area and this is some facility. For example, I needed a dilution refrigerator for my work, and it was very important that I had a person in the School of Physics who had that facility available here. So these are some things which may be specific to certain types of research. So you might want to talk to your prospective advisor about it.
I'm gonna quickly I'm gonna reiterate a question that was asked in the chat. And the question is, my wife and I have a young son, less than a year old, and I want to make sure I still spend time at home raising him. How have you balanced your school life and your personal/family life?
I think that also definitely depends on the lab. There are some labs where students are almost expected to be working all the time. And then there's some labs, like it's really the culture of the advisor. My advisor doesn't mind when you're working as long as you get all your work done. So that's very important for my work-life balance. Also, it depends if you're in the beginning of your PhD career, you're going to be taking lots of classes and managing research. So that might be a little bit harder right now. I don't take any classes and it's just research. So it's just my own schedule. So it really just depends on what lab group you're in and how you manage your own time.
So a lot of students in my lab are married, and they have a couple of them have kids. So the way they manage time is they schedule their entire year such that whenever they need vacation, my advisor is okay with giving them vacations, maybe a week or so. They do not turn up in the lab and they get to spend more time at home with their kids. But at the end of the day, whatever works between you and your advisor should be fine. Some advisors are even okay with letting people go for internships every year. So that is like a 3-month time commitment. But some other people are not okay with it. So it is very important that you tell your advisor about your family situation, explain your needs and how much time you need.
I'm going to keep it real a little bit. It's hard. Yes, all of those matters. But to be honest, it's not something that like, yeah, I want to be a grad student. I want to like keep my life work balance like very healthy. I want to have kids. I want to like go to gym, like do everything, have my social aspect. Like you can't handle all of that together. It's just hard. is tough. Like at some point you got to cut something out. It is really important that how do you do it? I have a friend in a different lab in our department that has 3 kids and he is managing it. But the only 2 aspects of his life is actually his wife and kids and his research. That's it. Like he doesn't do anything else. Like we invite him to parties, he doesn't show up. Like he doesn't go to gym. Like as far as I know, like I talked to him, he's like, I just don't have the time. And I get it, you know, I understand. At some point, I guess like, yeah, you can go out, you can have the social life. I think I was telling Evans last night, right? We talked about it. Like it really depends on, like, I do not work during the weekends when I don't have a deadline. It's just a no-no for me. Like I used to, and I realized I'm just killing myself. Like nothing is really, I'm not accomplishing as much, but like I'm not having any fun, like I'm not going out. I do not have a social life. And I just stopped. Like at some point I realized that I have to stop it. And right now I start my work day probably like around 8:30 in the morning. I go to office, I work all the way to 5:30. I go to gym, come back home, practice my music, do whatever that I want, go out. I have a social life, and I do not work during the weekends except for when I have a deadline. So there are things that you have to, you have to compromise sometimes. Like there's a deadline, you have to deliver. It's things are expected from you. Then I'll try to work during weekends. There were nights that I didn't sleep for like, I don't know. I was up to like 4 or 5 a.m. I working on a project, working on coding something, drafting a paper, whatever. So it really depends on you, how much to allow yourself to like let this balance be actually balanced. But again, like I completely agree. It depends on your lab, depends on your advisor. Some advisors are pushy. They might push you too much and you get stressed and you want to like deliver, but at the same time you're like, man, like I'm not productive enough. And so like, what should I do? So again, to understand the lab part or the advisor part, you have the opportunity to experience the lab before you commit to it. But after that, it's just you. Just how much you want to dedicate to work and how much you want to dedicate to your life.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is going to push you to your limits. That's the truth. But it is also like you have control over your work-life balance at the end of the day. And I think the vast majority of advisors are going to work with you to find a schedule that works for you. But like when you're taking coursework, like, yeah, I'm going to keep it real. I mean, you're going to be working on the weekends. Like it's like, it's not, but it doesn't have to be that way if you are extraordinarily good at time management. But it is a lot of work, but I mean, but I know that like people in my lab have families and they seem to manage it fine. And like, it's working for them. They've found a schedule that works for them. And like, also it depends on like your career desires as well. Like to an extent, it's like you are able to mold your work-life balance to take on the kind of like responsibilities that you think that you're ready for, at least in my experience. But like, I mean, I think we should just be honest here, guys. I mean, it's difficult but I think that you will be able to manage it as you get used to it, I guess, if that makes sense.
There were two questions back, if you want to. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was in BioE and ECE as well. So I knew my advisor before, I knew about my advisor before. So I mailed him asking for an opportunity to work with him for 6 months. It was a special problem because you're in, you can, so I know that BioE has a requirement for you to choose an advisor in the first 6 months. So if you visit them, they will let you know. So you're supposed to interview 6 advisors and give submit a list of 3 advisors. You can request for a waiver from that scheme where they will not require you to choose an advisor within the first 6 months, and you can choose it during the second 6 months. So during the first 6 months, you can work with an ECE advisor of your choice. Typically, because you also come technically under the school of ECE, BioE is not technically a school, it's a program. So according to the rules of the ECE department, you can do 2 cycles of a special problem, or like, because you have a TA for the first 1 year. I think Hamad would be able to comment more on how many special problems you can do. Can you do 3?
You can do 3, but 2 of them are only going to be considered towards your PhD.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can do 1 in your fall, spring, and you can also do 1 in your summer, but it won't be counted towards your degree. So you can try out 3 advisors. And I think the BioE department is fine with you choosing an advisor either in your second semester or the latest before your first summer. So you should be fine with it.
And when you're going around talking to different professors looking for a potential advisor, it's really important to set your expectations straight. One really important thing that we all maybe struggle with, I mean, at least I know I struggled with, was asking if they have funding, right? And at the end of the day, you need them to fund you, and they need you to get publications, right? So just don't hold back, from talking about these things, because these things are important. And at the end of the day, these are these are things that are going to, maybe help you understand whether or not this is the person you want to work with, right? So yeah, just try to set these expectations from the very beginning so that you don't run into any hurdles later on. But yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So I applied to a bunch of places. So I'm interested in optics. So my other choice really was the College of Optics in Arizona. I visited there. It was a great program. It was much smaller. As I said, I did my undergrad here at Tech, so I knew what I was getting into if I stayed here. I love Atlanta. I love the campus. And because we're the largest producer of ECEs, we have a lot more resources available. So like we have a huge clean room. It's like the largest clean room in the Southeast, something like that. And it's a shared space, and we have a lot of different professors to choose from. There's just a lot of facilities. So for me, that's what helped. And also the fact that really picking your group. I picked my group at the beginning of my program. Basically, after I was accepted, I knew which group I wanted to be in, and I talked to that professor. So it really comes down to, do you want to work with any of the professors, any of the lab groups in the university that you're accepted?
Yeah, I was looking at the other place I was accepted was Michigan, and I just thought it was much nicer here personally. Not to throw any shade at the Michigan people in the audience, but also I just really liked the culture here more. I think there was a much broader diversity of research happening here. That's just my opinion. Also, Georgia Tech guaranteed me funding for the entirety of my degree. Michigan could not make that promise. So, that was a big part of it. But also, like, the thing I've noticed about Georgia Tech is like there's a lot of people are like pretty humble here. Like students are very successful, but it's not it's not really like it's not a very pretentious environment, you know. But yet you're surrounded by like really high quality people who are pretty much at the top of their field. So it's a pretty fantastic opportunity.
For me, I had to pick between, I think so I'm coming from a master's. My background in undergrad was controls and systems. I did a different master's on like machine learning for healthcare. So I kind of like right now I'm combining my undergrad and my master's. Like I'm doing machine learning for robotics and control systems. But in my master's, I did healthcare, and because of that, I applied to like Emory University here, which is like on its level, it's a pretty good university. They have a hospital, and like they have a lot of medical healthcare data. If you care about that, that's a huge thing. I know like Google and DeepMind are like working with them for data that they have. So like it's a very rich. So I applied to them. I got an admission from them, and I got an admission from McGill in Canada. And I eventually ended up picking Georgia Tech, although I had a better financially offer from Emory because there's a private school and they have a hospital. So I had like a 3-year scholarship without even like having to worrying about like a TA or an RA. I had like 3-year, and the money itself was higher than what Georgia Tech was offering, which was 1-year TA for the start. But eventually it ended up me picking Georgia Tech over all of those because it's a combination of everything that people have said. Like I wanted to kind of like work on what I wanted to, not like really continue the healthcare. Like I wanted to move to like robotics controls. I have had professors here that I wanted to work with, and also like to me, Georgia Tech sounded more prestigious. You know, like I wanted to go to a school that is ranked higher. That also had a factor. Not gonna lie, and yeah, so at the end, also like McGill was also a good university, but I just felt like I had more opportunities here, and I picked Georgia Tech. So that was for me. Next question. Yep. Yes. Someone got kicked out from our lab. 2, actually. One was kicked out because of their lack of capability of performing research and delivering. So they got kicked out by my advisor. Another one was kicked out of program. So they were kicked out of school basically because there's like a certain line, like 3-5 semesters, whatever, based on the department that you're in, that you have to like, what is it called? The
Coursework qualifier?
yeah, the qualifier stuff that you have to pass that. And that specific person was unable to do it for 2 times in a row, and they were just kicked out of school, out of program. So it could happen.
Yeah, so we used to have essentially a preliminary qualifying exam for students based on your undergrad work. And so there were a small number of students that couldn't pass the exam in the required number of times. So they were dropped from the program. I have a friend that happened to, but we've switched from that to a coursework qualifying exam. So you take, I think, 4 classes. You have to get something like a 3.0 or 3.5 GPA. Maybe 3.5. And that's within 2 semesters, I believe.
Oh, no, it's 2 years.
2 years.
2 years and a half, and then you have to propose.
Yeah, so
at
you
the
do
end.
the coursework qualifier, you take some classes, then you propose, and then you defend your thesis. Those are the steps to graduate. And other than not passing the prelim, the other reason I know that students have been kicked out of a group is if they're just not performing as they should be. But if you are hardworking and you're open when you're struggling, and you reach out for guidance from older students, your advisor, all the resources we have, then I don't see a problem. But sometimes there's also the fact that some advisors and students don't mesh. And so the advisor drops the student rather than dealing with them. So again, it just comes down to how well you work in the group. So I would recommend that any student that gets dropped immediately goes to the academic office and gets funding as a GTA. They can do that for you. So then you have maybe a semester to find another group, and or choose to leave if you want to do so. The PhD is not for everyone, and I know some students that have left.
Yeah, I think if you get dropped by an advisor because if your advisor drops you because there's like a belief that there's not a good fit between you two, but you're like performing well as a student, I have been told by the academic office that they will fund that student. Like, I personally don't know anyone who's been in that situation, but from what I've seen, there's like a lot of like cushion in case something goes wrong with like your first choice of advisor. Like you have like the backing of the department for you to like try again. You know, you're not going to get like basically like crucified and like kicked out, but like I mean, you do need to be performing, but it's fine if like there's a mismatch with like your first choice of advisor.
I think he's had his hand up for a while, so we'll go with you in the back.
Could you repeat that? Yeah. So, did you
Go for it.
So there are two different ways that internships work. One is you're doing an internship sort of for your career. You're trying to network. So some students do that. Also, not all advisors let students do internships, so keep that in mind. So I have a friend who did internships not related to his research, but just to get work experience and make connections. I sort of do internships, so I'm funded by a fellowship, but before that, I was funded by the Air Force Research Lab. And so every summer I would go there for an internship and work towards my degree, but working with the people there, using their resources, learning about the facility. So it's up to you. It depends on how you're being funded. It depends on if your advisor will let you, and it depends on what opportunities you're looking for.
So there are basically two types of internships. At Tech, I think other schools also have that. It's a co-op or just a full-time internship that you go. When you do a co-op, you basically get to work like half time on your research and half time on the project that you're doing for the company. Internship is just you work full-time for the company. I've done just internship. I've never co-opted actually. I've done an internship before last summer, and I'm doing another one this summer. My advisor determines if you're eligible for doing an internship or not based on your performance during that year. So like if you delivered enough, if you are on the line for graduation or whatever that like, whatever that you had a goal for that year, if you are getting there or if you already got there, then he would determine if you're eligible to do that or not. And I never got help from my advisor, like directly to be introduced to a company. I just, like everyone else, I just applied, got interviewed multiple times and got the internships that I got. It never pushed back my research. And there was another thing that you said. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so no, it actually didn't affect my internship, my research at all. And it was actually helpful for whatever I was doing.
Yeah, like for me, like my advisor has been extremely helpful with like finding internships, and like they've been like the opportunities that I've been exposed to have all been like research internships. So I haven't done it yet, but from what I understand, like there are opportunities for you to like potentially do an internship that could be part of that could develop into something that plays a role in your dissertation in the future. And I know that like even outside of like any particular lab, like there's lots of companies out there nowadays that are interested in having students come in and do stuff like that. Obviously, I can't speak on every single field. I'm just talking about my field right now. But yeah, Don't know if that helps.
It's really easy to do
Very
that.
easy.
You just fill out a form.
Just fill out a form and you're out. You don't have to do much.
I don't think it's recommended.
Yeah, it's not recommended though.
So I filled out the form that would allow me to get my non-thesis master's the first semester of my PhD program as just like a, just in case. I know students who have mastered out. Some of them I have one friend who got to 4 years in a power lab and wasn't anywhere near graduation and decided he was going to do the online CS masters and go to Silicon Valley. It's doing really well. But to get the non-thesis masters is just a matter of filling out the form and doing the coursework that the PhD requires. And then you apply to graduate and you get the masters along the way. I did that. But if you want to master out, that's up to you. Not that many people do it, but a lot of people do get the masters along the way.
I had a friend in the robotics program that was working on the side in a robotics company. He felt like at a point that the PhD is not really adding to whatever he was doing, and he already had a lot going, and he felt like the work in industry is fitting him much more easily, and he actually wanted to quit. And then he talked to the academic advisor. They told him that you can master out, so you don't have to quit. And he just mastered out. Basically, he decided and he was out. It wasn't a hard process.
I don't want to interrupt too much, but I know there are more questions, but I just wanted to we have one more ECE PhD student who could offer his perspective on our panel. He is also the Dean of Engineering, but more importantly, an ECE PhD student. So
yeah. Good. All right. So first of all, congratulations. This is fantastic. It's a big deal to be accepted to our graduate program. So congratulations. Welcome to our campus. I hope you enjoy the city. It's a fantastic, hope you enjoy the weather, right? Like it's pretty nice out. As Mark mentioned, I'm Rahim Bia. I'm the Dean of Engineering. I also was a very, very nervous potential graduate student decades ago. And I'll talk about what these super really smart graduate students probably didn't mention. I was paranoid. I had imposter syndrome. I was coming from a small school. I was worried, could I be successful at Georgia Tech? Could I step it up? All that stuff. The first semester was tough. It was tough. It was a significant adjustment. I imagine you all maybe appreciate that as well. But once I figured out, okay, well, I think I got the hang of this. I think I can be successful. And it worked out really well. And so I heard a lot of comments about, man, it's tough, it's hard. And it is true, right? And any PhD program is, it's not just us. That's just how it works. The piece that I want to stress, and we did not talk about this when Mark and I were graduate students. I guess I was a little before Mark. Your mental health is the highest priority, period, right? Period. So if there are ever concerns where you have to take a break, you need to take a break. And there are issues with your advisor, let me know. Call me, because that is our highest priority. And when I was a graduate student, nobody cared. It didn't matter at all, right? So that piece is important. So you need to work out first. You need to play guitar. Those things are critical, and you put your research on top of that, right? So that's how you schedule and make sure you do that. The last thing I'll say is, listen, I know you're looking at other places. I know that. But we really are just a really big family. I mean, this is so important to me. Last year, I was on vacation, spring break with my family. They moved the week this time, so I'll be on a plane Sunday, which is great. But this is so important to me, getting new, amazing graduate students. And I was on the beach, and I videoed in to welcome you all, because this is critical. We care. Not only are we an exceptional program, but we care. And I know that sometimes that message doesn't get all the way to our students, but from the leadership, from the president, the provost, to me as the Dean of Engineering, many of our faculty and chairs, we actually absolutely care. And what the message I've been trying to communicate to my colleagues, and I think we're getting it, is listen, if you are burned out, you're not productive. Like, I don't care if you're in my lab, if you're doing nothing, right? And so it's important to take time off. When my students submit a paper, I still have 3 PhD students. I basically say, look, I'm not talking to you for another 3 or 4 days. Like, don't send me an email, go do something, go take a break, go take a trip, but don't talk to me about the next project. And there are lots of folks here like Mark that value that. And I think the message, it's slowly getting there, but throughout all of our faculty. So anyway, welcome. I saw a hand. I'm happy to take a few questions before I run out. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Great question. So the race was a little faster. Folks were running faster. I went to a small school in North Carolina, and to be honest, most of the folks there were from North Carolina, right? And so if you're grabbing your talent from one small area as opposed to globally, like what we're doing, it's going to be a different type of race, right? So when I got here, it was like, man, you got the best from all over the world, and I had to run a little faster. The other thing is it's sort of a parallel concept, which is it was much more diverse, which was fantastic to me. I mean, so I had groups with folks from all over the world. So not only did I learn, electrical and computer engineering, I learned about various cultures, and that was just fascinating. And so I would study for the PhD prelim at the time with just a really diverse group from a local as well as international. Yeah. What else?
I can also speak on that because I came from a really small school. I did my undergrad at a teaching school in California. And when I came to Georgia Tech, I did not know what research is. I mean, I knew what research is, but I didn't know I didn't know how to approach it. I wasn't used to talking to different faculty. I wasn't used to writing papers. I didn't know how to write a paper. I didn't know I didn't know what a methodology is. I didn't know what the difference between a design and the methodology is. And these are things that you kind of learn. And I mean, it's sort of embarrassing to say this, but I mean, these are things that you learn as you talk to people, as you just get yourself involved in what it is that you want to do, right? And at the end of the day, we all come in with a different background, and we all go through different experiences. So it's all about making it work for you. So something that works for someone else may not necessarily work for you. So it's good to get advice from different people who've been through this journey, who've been through this experience. But at the end of the day, you just got to find and just figure out what works for you. And
you have a PhD advisor, right? So you're not expected to know those things, right? It's okay to not know. Your advisor is there to advise you, to give you this information. When I came as a PhD student, I worked on quality of service on the internet, right? And so just to date myself, I was super excited, like, man, it'll be amazing if one day we can actually talk over the internet. It'll be crazy. So that's what my PhD was on. And so when I got here, I remember doing research, which I had no idea what that was, right? And so I started like looking for papers. I think a senior student told me I started looking for papers. And I remember the first paper I saw, it was like, quality of service over the internet. And I was like, oh my God, my idea, this is it. I can't get a PhD. I mean, I literally was that over. I'm like, no. I talked to my advisor. He was like, no, listen. This is just one paper. There are probably hundreds. That's fine. That's the foundation. That's the background. And you build on that. But again, I was so clueless when I walked in the door. I saw that one title that matched mine. And I'm like, oh man, I got to drop out of school now. Right. So that stuff, we will work with you. That's why you have advisors. Like, that's why we have counselors. That's why you have senior graduate students. I think it was Lakshmi, is that right? I love the feedback. And I think you all did this. The most important thing that you can do is talk to students. Talk to students, right? And what you want to do is, and you're going to find the similar cultures at many institutions, but you need to pair yourself with an advisor that works the way you want to work. And remind me your name? Essie said, look, I want to be pushed, right? That's important to me, right? Well, Lakshmi said, hey, I got an advisor that's kind of like, I get the work done, right? So That's, you have to figure out what works for you and you choose the advisor that way. And sometimes it makes much more sense to be slightly out of the area of interest, right? To find that match. Because guess what? You're doing a PhD for 4 or 5 years. You're going to change what you're doing probably as soon as you get done, right? So you need enough to keep your interest, to be excited about it, but you learn how to learn, right? You learn how to discover things, and that's the most important piece. And if you want to pivot a bit, I completely stopped doing quality of service when I got my PhD and moved into cybersecurity like the same day, literally. As a matter of fact, I wrote my first cybersecurity paper while I was doing my PhD in this other area. I don't recommend that. But anyway, so make sure you talk to students. They will tell you exactly the truth, and they will help you pair and find the perfect advisor. So feel free to email me if I can help you in any way, if I can help you make your decision. I would love to talk with you. If you're local, love to grab coffee. And again, congratulations and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there are there more questions? We crashed the end of
Do we have, I guess, do we have any final, like maybe short questions that, yeah, go ahead.
So the GTA offer, when I started, there was like a 1/3 GTA option, which I think ECE is not giving that anymore, which was like half of the or basically full GTA. Just giving you the number without any like, right now, I think it's like around 2,500 at ECE, 2470. Yeah. I'm getting paid in CS though, which their payment rate is higher a little bit. And but their expenses around here, again, it depends on where you live, how many roommates do you have, you know, like if you want to have a car, not have a car, like it really depends how you live, but it's enough. It can get you through.
Just a quick breakdown. Rent is going to vary on if you're trying to get a nice apartment that you're sharing or living in Home Park, which is on 10th Street, which are houses that college students share. So Home Park rent can be around 600-700. Other rent is going to be more like maybe 1,300-1,400 max if you're sharing. If you want a single bedroom in Midtown, that's going to be more like 1,500, and I don't think anyone does that. Most people have roommates. Having a car on campus means you're probably going to need a parking pass. That's $800 a year. There is health insurance that's subsidized for GRAs and GTAs. So that's something like a few $100s a semester. You pay in the fall, and then you pay for the spring and summer together. So that's a little bit more expensive. You will have to cover fees. That's something like a little over $1,000 every semester. But your tuition will be covered by your tuition waiver. The GRAs are paid a little bit more than the GTAs. I'm supported now by a fellowship, so I get paid a little bit more than that. And file your taxes, guys.
Yeah, and about that fee thing, I got that question a couple of times, so I just wanted to make sure. It's different from your tuition. It's just a mandatory fee that you pay for the services that you get around campus, like bus, gym, whatever, a lot of different things and it is over $1,000. When I started, it was like, for me, I was paying like, I think like 1,300. Now it's like around $1,400 a semester. Because as grad students, we don't want to pay that like right away, like $1,500 just out of pocket. We kind of like break it down into like our monthly stipends. And that means for a semester with 4 months, 1 month you get like after taxes, something around like 2,000, and 3 other months you get something around like 1,500 or something. And so that's almost about it if you have a full GTA or GRA.
It's expensive, but you can manage.
One thing that I kind of feel like is important, sorry, I was waiting for Dr. Bea and Mark to leave and to kind of reiterate this. And this is my honest opinion. I swear. Everything that Dr. Bias said is actually true. I felt that here at Georgia Tech. My advisor, I told you my advisor is pushing, like there was deadlines and everything. But after deadlines, like I wanted to continue working because I didn't care. But my advisor was like, can you please go home? And I was like, sure, I mean, I'll leave. And then he literally just slacked me that no, go home. I don't want to see you in like next 4 days. And I saw that with like other people's and like, I'm not saying it's every advisor. I'm not saying it's every professor, but it is true. I've had people, friends that were kicked out of labs, or the professor were just not, like they didn't want to work for that professor because of a lot of reasons. We can take it offline if you wanted to know what the problems were. I'll give you the exact situation. And then when they were out of the lab, it is at first stressful and scary. Like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have any like funding or source, but ECE school is always there and they always got your back. And this is my sincere, honest answer to acknowledge whatever Dr. Bia said. It's absolutely true. Like, they always got you. Like, I had friends that they got in a fight with their advisor. They left the lab, but the ECE actually gave them 2 TAs, 1 lecture course to just like lecture so that they have the money to just like rotate around and graduate, and that worked for them. They're right now professor in a different school. And so I know like it sounds scary and like it might, at a point it might be, oh yeah, I mean, the professor, dean of engineering is supposed to say that, right? But it is, but everything that they said is true. And your mental health and everything that Dr. Bia said again is actually valuable and important. They do a lot of things. They have pet therapy things for you to, they do care about it. They do a lot of things to make sure that you're doing fine.
Yeah, you're gonna be working hard, but like it's the school definitely really has your back. Like I've definitely felt that multiple times for various reasons. I saw another hand. Yeah. I don't, it depends how sure you, like me, like I knew what I wanted to do. I knew like what was going on like for my research. So I did not, I just went straight into research.
Thank you for that question. That's actually a very important question, honestly, because there is going to be like, it's sort of like a trade-off between how much you rotate and how much you want to stick to one person. I do not recommend rotating if you have a TA for 3 semesters. I do not recommend rotating just 3 different labs to, like at the end, it's like you're just testing and you don't have anything committed. And after a year, you need to have someone funding you as a GRA. I do recommend I did it once. I TA'd when I was a GTA, I worked for a person that was doing like DSP for healthcare, and like they had hardware in it, like their technical interest group was EDA, electronic design something. And that didn't work for me. Like I didn't want to continue working in that lab. But then I moved to my current advisor's lab. I worked for a semester, and the 3rd semester, I knew I wanted to work for him. He knew he wanted to have me in his lab. And so I just talked to him and he said, I don't want you to be a TA anymore. I'm just going to pay you the GRA. And so it worked for me. So do take advantage of it, but not too much, honestly. Try to be smart about your choices and how much you rotate.
Yeah, most students do 1 or 2. You can do it for as long as you want. So we don't have like a rotational program. It's more you can join a lab through special problems, or you can just try working with the professor for a semester or 2 and see if it works for you.
You talk to the professor basically saying that I'm a new PhD student, I have GTA, I'd be willing to work in your lab. Do you have any projects for me? And they normally do, and they give you a special problem. You start, and then if you perform well, the next semester you'll be like, so where's it going? Like, yeah.
So a very good resource is talking to the senior students in the lab. Always before you join a lab, like grab a coffee, just meet a student. You can mail anyone and all the senior students will be more than happy to meet with you and talk to you. And trust me, senior students give you the most honest feedback about their advisors and about their lab. And I know Mark is here, but yeah.
No, I agree with that. Students come to me all the time and ask what my lab is like, and I give them the very unfiltered version because I know there's no point in hiding anything because you should know what you're getting into, and we want you to know what you're getting into.
100%. If you ask me about my advisor, I will tell you personally, not here, but I will tell you personally what are the good things about working with them. So do try to, if you want to work with a professor, do try to talk to their PhD students. They're honest. We have been through everything, so we try to be honest. Yeah. Try to take on their courses and do well in the courses, and then do a special problem with their lab. If like there are professors that it's even hard to get a special problem with them. Yeah, it's like they are very good. Their students always have like an internship ready for them. Like you just know that, and it's like super good. They have jobs ready and stuff. They're very successful. But again, one thing that I saw is that try to take their courses, be very good in their courses, like try to just show yourself your capabilities. And that's the only way, honestly, like try to, show that you're a good fit for the lab.
And Essie brings up a good point, and with this we'll end. So when you do take classes, a lot of classes here do have a project component. So what you could try to do is align that project with that professor's research. So in a way, you turn a class project into a research project. So you're kind of hitting two birds with one stone. You get credit for the class, and you allow the professor to kind of evaluate you based on, the work that you're able to deliver on that project. So I guess we're pretty much out of time. Thank you guys for showing up, and I hope this was helpful. I think some of us are planning to stick around. I unfortunately can't because I have a meeting at 12, but if we do happen to run into each other, I guess we're all more than happy to answer any further questions you might have.
There's also tonight.
Oh yeah.
Briefing, if you wanted to continue any, we'll be happy. I'll be here.
Okay, let me start getting us organized for this controlled chaos that will be lunch and a campus tour. So there's a bunch of us, and we all have to get lunch. Lunch is in the basically in a room at the bottom on the first floor when you go down the elevators, but they're just boxed lunches. And the plan is that we're just going to take those and eat kind of wherever you want. So we're gonna probably eat outside. There's a lot of places to eat outside downstairs. It's a nice day. But then kind of as soon as people are done with lunch, we're gonna try to do a short campus tour. And what I'm going to basically say is, so can the tour guides come over here so people know kind of who to look for? So I'm gonna put Andrew in charge because he's the tallest and people will be able to see him, and he can be loud if he wants to, I know by experience. So when we have lunch, I think what we should do, we should all just go downstairs and get lunch. And then we will need to divide into basically two large groups, and you are the ones that are gonna have to figure out which group you belong to, because you need to decide, or you need to know basically at the end of lunch or at the end of the tour, is my first meeting with someone, if you have one, over here in this part of campus, which is like the CODA building, Synergy building, or TSRB. So if your next meeting is in one of those, that's like Tech Square is the name of this area. And basically if your next meeting is in Tech Square, you want to go with the group whose tour is going to end in Tech Square. And if your next meeting is in basically any other building, you're going to want to end up not over here because that's like a 10-minute walk away from there. So when it's time to sort of leave, we'll make try to like make a loud announcement downstairs and convince people to sort of move in a herd around the campus and see some of it. So are there any questions?
And lunch logistics, so there's not room in that one room to have
Yeah.
lunch, so we should probably start dividing up. We don't necessarily have to if we all want to go out on the patios.
Yes.
Figure out.
Yeah.
We can figure out some good spots to just kind of know around.
Yeah. So I would say go downstairs, probably go downstairs, grab a lunch, and then we'll go outside into the courtyard area. There's tons of places out there, probably. I grab your if you so I guess there's two options. It's probably best to just grab the swag now. If you we'll probably not come back. If we run out of a t-shirt size, let me know. And thank you to all the online people for participating.